Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook. All people. My race is the 18-winged fallen angel. Chapter 81. But it shouldn't be. My secret plan is so perfect. How did the kingdom of Gus know about it? He shook his head. Looked up. With fierce eyes. In this case, let's start the war in advance. According to the plan I said before, the whole army will attack. The goblin priest kneeling outside the door of the secret room lowered his head and respectfully said, I obey, Your Majesty the Great. After people leave, the goblin priest stood up slowly. The tall and burly body exudes waves of coercion like waves. This force, which is powerful enough to crush any low-level abyssal creatures, caused the surrounding fields of space to vibrate slightly. The Red Devil raised his right hand. He held a hexagonal blood-colored gemstone in his palm. A faint blush shone inside the gem. This thing is exactly the abyssal blood crystal bestowed by the Lord. The blood crystal contains extremely pure abyssal power. In the past 1.5 months, he has relied on blood crystals. The level has been raised from level 30 to level 32. Although his own goal is to rise to level 33 in one breath. However, the sudden dispatch of troops from the kingdom of Gus made him give up the idea of upgrading to level 33. But level 30 is enough. As for the strength of King Gus and other lords of the 5 kingdoms, in so many years, he has already figured out the strength of 7 or 8. The victory of this battle will surely belong to the great Red Devil Kingdom. And I, Abel, will reunite the 6 divided kingdoms into one and fulfill the long-cherished wish of the Red Devil Kings of all generations. The Red Devil clenched his right fist. He had secretly prepared for this long-cherished wish for years. The border between the Crimson Devil Kingdom and the Gus Kingdom. The flames of war have burned to the extreme. Kill, go and bring the highest glory to His Majesty King Gus. Show your sincerity and courage at this moment. A goblin knight rode a dragon lizard, waved his sharp sword, and let out a roar. The terrifying sound waves rushed into the sky, shaking everything within a radius of several kilometers. It caused countless dust storms to fly up, like hurricanes appearing suddenly. Behind the goblin knights, a large group of guards held their sharp weapons high. The mouth shouted the roar of, kill, kill, kill. Then charge forward to the Red Devil's army. The earth trembled constantly. It seems that there are thousands of horses galloping and rumbling. And one side of the Red Devil's army in the middle. Standing a burly orc with a height of 5 meters. The orcs were clad in silver armor and held a very heavy broadsword in each hand. The ant-like kingdom of Gus dares to take the lead in attacking our Red Devil Kingdom. It's ridiculous. Beast bloody. The burly orc stomps forward. The ground in front of him suddenly sunken and shattered. A burst of blood-colored brilliance emerged from the orc's silver armor. The blood radiance spread out, forming a radiance circle. All the dark goblins shrouded in blood brilliance, the blood in the body suddenly burst out, and the momentum was soaring. A strong killing intent burst out from every soldier's eyes. This is the domain-wide skill of the orcs. The dark goblins within the range of this blood brilliance will have a huge increase in all aspects of power. Let these Gus kingdoms see how powerful my Red Devil Kingdom is. Kill them all. The orc waved his hand, extremely. All the warriors of the Red Devil Kingdom are majestic and roaring to the sky. The 2 armies fought fiercely together. Inside the kingdom of Gus. The king obviously didn't give any order. Why did the guards dispatch? King Gus stared angrily, and his blood-red gaze stared at a dark goblin kneeling down on the ground, dressed in a purple gold robe. This dark goblin named Rot was kowtowing to King Gus at the moment. While trembling, he said, Your Majesty, Your Majesty. I don't know, I obviously haven't sent any information, and when I woke up, I got the news that the guards were dispatched for no reason. In addition to the endless fear on his face, the look under his eyes was as ugly as if he had eaten a piece of shit. He is still in a daze in his heart. As soon as he woke up, he got the news that the guards suddenly launched an attack on the other 5 dark goblin kingdoms. Your Majesty, it is urgent, I think. Backquote. Rot, the head of the guards, just wanted to say something. Next moment, PFF'd. The blood came and splashed several meters with the brain. In full view, Rot's head exploded. There was only a headless corpse lying in a pool of blood, bleeding continuously. The scene was horrible. HMPH. I didn't expect that this king would hand over such an important thing as military power to you, a waste, and didn't even know the movement of the guards at all. King Gus stood up and glared at the headless corpse. Since he became the master of the Gus Kingdom, he has never been so angry like today. Then he raised his head slightly and growled, "Where is High Priest Hatu? Are you back?" "Way, Your Majesty, the High Priest has not returned yet." Heard the words, King Gus could only sit back on the chair angrily. As soon as he got the news, he asked the High Priest Hatu to go to the Red Devil Kingdom and even several other countries to explain the matter. Now tens of minutes have passed, and I don't know what's going on with Hatu. Hopefully everything will work out in time. King Gus, who was full of surging anger in his heart, was soon shrouded in worry again. Although there are constant frictions between the 6 Dark Goblin Kingdoms, on the whole they are relatively peaceful. But in the past 10 years, the Red Devil Kingdom seems to have received the help of the Abyss Lord behind it, and its strength has soared, and its military strength has soared. And having met the Red Demon King Abiel several times, he knows that the other party's ambition is not small. But he didn't pay much attention. After all, due to the fact that there is an Abyss Lord behind the 6 kingdoms, no matter how great the ambition of the Red Devil King is, he can only be suppressed. But now the Abyss Lord behind him, and even the Abyss Lords from the Red Heart Kingdom and other 4 countries are fighting for the Demon God's thing. On the other hand, the Lord of the Red Devil Kingdom didn't participate in the fight, so he felt something was wrong. "Your Majesty," a weak and flustered voice echoed on the ground. King Gus looked up. "See the palace gate ahead." The space twisted for a while. Then a fictitious door to space opens. A figure walked out of the door of space. The person who came was the High Priest of the Kingdom of Gus, High Priest Hatu. "High Priest, you are injured." King Gus narrowed his eyes suddenly, and instantly noticed that the High Priest was injured. "It's just a minor injury." High Priest Hatu shook his head first. Then he hurriedly said, "Your Majesty is not good. The Red Devil Kingdom has long been prepared for this battle. When I went there, the Red Devil Kingdom not only refused to listen to my dissuasion, but even wanted to keep me there forever. If I hadn't response, I'm afraid I'm trapped by his heavy magic circle." Finished listening, King Gus was stunned for a few seconds, and when he came back to his senses, he turned pale with astonishment. He, Abel, must have gone crazy. Starting a war against any vassal of an Abyss Lord is tantamount to declaring war on his lord. Does he really think he can bear the anger of the Abyss Lord? "Your Majesty, what shall we do now?" King Gus cursed. He stood up abruptly, and shouted, "Been ordered by the king, the kingdom has officially entered a state of war, and everyone is on the highest alert. And along with Gus Kingdom, raised to the highest vigilance. The other goblin kingdoms also adjusted to a state of war within an hour. After all, apart from the kingdom of Gus sending 5 armies to attack 5 kingdoms at the same time. The Red Devil Kingdom on one side also divided the army into 5 groups and attacked the 5 goblin kingdoms together. Even if there is a kingdom that does not want to be involved in this war, it can only be forced to take action now. While the war is intensifying, time also passed by little. Soon, 2 days later, Fortress of Eternity, Luo Shang looked calm, looking at the abyss channel in front of him. A brother in the inner domain can explain what is going on now. According to the observation of the troops I sent in the past, the 6 Dark Goblin Kingdoms are still fighting fiercely. However, among them, the Kingdom of Night, the Kingdom of Scarlet Heart, and the Kingdom of Dark Gold, these 3 kingdoms of Dark Goblins seem to have formed an alliance against the other 3 kingdoms of Dark Goblins. But having said that, the Red Demon Kingdom is really fierce. At the same time, it fought hard against the Dark Goblin Kingdom from all directions. Not only did it not fall from the lower peak, but it also firmly occupied the upper peak. On the other hand, Gus Kingdom, which took the lead in attacking, seems to be in the weakest position right now. Tisk tisk tisk, I can only say that the battle is really fierce. I can feel the powerful magic power near the border of the inner domain, and I can see the huge abyss circle. It's so terrifying, just looking at the screenshots, I can feel a sense of oppression. Hey, the bigger they play, the better. Anyway, it's cheaper for those of us who turn around. I just found a few dark goblins with residual blood running towards me, and then gave me an opportunity to make up the knife and earn a lot of experience points. Upstairs is really dark. But I like it. Turn off messages in the channel. The corners of Luo Sheng's mouth had already drawn a curve. He stood up slowly. That elegant face is now full of conquest visible to the naked eye. Lilith. A dark corner in the temple. A phantom in the shape of a willow waist came out. Lilith is here. Lilith, who had a figure that surpassed all succubi, slowly squatted down. She lowered her head deeply, making a soft voice like a lark. Notify all arms, prepare to attack the inner domain. Yes, the order came soon after. The entire Eternal Fallen territory, and even the troops in each stronghold are all dispatched. Since reincarnation till now, the total number of units Luo Shang has is 500 fallen demons, 220 eternally fallen knights, 200 necromancers, and 100 shadow hunters. And most importantly, 80 lava gorfiends and 80 eternal fallen dark knights. Although the total number is added together, there are only more than 1,000. But in the abyss, the most important thing is grade, not quantity. 160 level 20 goblins, with this number alone, even if the 6 dark goblin kingdoms add up, they can't make so many goblins that have reached level 20. Luo Shang came to the sky, looking at the mighty eternal fallen army in the distance. His eyes were full of pride. For this attack, he will also go with the army. He wants to see the 6 dark goblin kingdoms destroyed before his eyes. I don't know what the reward will be when I complete this abyss mission. Hope you don't disappoint me too much. Hours passed. Inner domain, Tay, outsider, I'm going to tear you into pieces. There were bursts of loud roars. Zhao Tianguang jumped down from the hill. Walked towards a trap that he carefully arranged not far away. A level 9 dark goblin lay on all fours, covered by a large black net that resembled a fishing net. Looking at the dark goblin in the net, his face was ferocious, his limbs kept moving, and he seemed to want to stand up. But because of the strong gravity attached to the big net, it is difficult to get up at all. The alien, the dark goblin just wanted to roar again. Unexpectedly, a mouthful of saliva was sprayed on the face. Bah, there are still so many bullshits trapped by my gravity net, you can be again, believe it or not, I will chop you up now. Zhao Tianguang sneered, and took out a big knife. Seeing this, the dark goblin warrior was not only not angry, but even obediently shut his mouth. See, Zhao Tianguang put away the machete, turned around, and smiled all over his face. Big harvest, this time, I didn't expect to catch a 9th level goblin warrior. The voice just fell. The smile on Zhao Tianguang's face suddenly faded. There is movement. Could it be that there are other goblin fighters not far away? Thinking of this, Zhao Tianguang hurried back to the hill. He turned his head in the direction of the movement and used his skills. Prying eyes. He closed his eyes. In the void tens of meters above his head, he opened an illusory eye. Thousands of meters away, 2 eternal fallen knights riding undead horses slowly appeared in his vision. The eternal fallen dark rider exudes a icy good bone-chilling chill all over his body. The cold air continued, and under his gaze, in a few seconds, the land with a radius of 1 kilometer was frozen into ice. And with the movement of the horses, the ice layer continued to expand in the field. All go, with this power, could it be that these 2 monsters are both level 20 monsters? Even though it was so far away, Zhao Tianguang could suddenly feel the cold wind blowing, making his hair stand on end. Could it be that these 2 monsters belong to a dark goblin kingdom? But that's not right, the flag pattern on it doesn't look like any dark goblin kingdom. Zhao Tianguang noticed that behind the 2 undead horses, there was a long bone battle flag. The battle flag fluttered in the wind, with a strange sea of skulls painted on it. While muttering inwardly, "Wait, that's it," with sharp eyes, he suddenly noticed that there were other figures behind the 2 eternal fallen dark riders. Only see the vast land. Rows of skeleton armies in bronze armor greeted them neatly. Army of undead. And behind the huge skeleton army, he saw a large area of eternal fallen knights and eternal fallen knights. The eternal fallen dark riders marched forward in 2 rows. The fallen knight advanced in the middle of the 2 columns. Boom boom boom. The sound of orderly footsteps made the earth vibrate rhythmically. Zhao Tianguang, who was standing on the hill, could also feel the violent shaking of the hill under his feet. Zhao Tianguang, who thought everything was over here, suddenly felt an unprecedented torrential magic power coming from the sky. Subconsciously, he quickly manipulated his peeping eyes and looked towards a higher place. But this look almost scared his soul out of his wits. I saw the sky above. Gorfiends flying with lava demon wings spread out, covering the sky. Zhao Tianguang quickly withdrew from the prying eyes. His face was pale, and his lips were more like coated with a layer of white powder. He slumped down in fright. Mada, this is the scourge of the undead. Looking at that direction, it seems to be coming from the outer domain. Didn't everyone say that the abyssal creatures in Outland are weak? After whispering a few times, Zhao Tianguang hurriedly shook his head. No, my life is important, I have to leave here quickly. Taking a few deep breaths, he stood up violently again. If those monsters pay attention to this side, he will be finished. Not far away, this mighty, uniform magic army is above the sky. Luo Shang walked in the air with calm eyes, looking at the towering buildings rising from the ground in the distance. Looking at the location, it should be the kingdom of Gus. He said lightly, his eyes were unusually calm. His idea is to defeat the 6 dark goblin kingdoms one by one. After all, if you fight against 6 kingdoms at the same time, you have to open up 6 battlefields at the same time. In this way, the number of arms will be dispersed a lot. So in his view, breaking down one by one is the best way. My lord, I found a reincarnated person who was about to escape nearby, are you going to kill him? In an instant, Lilith came to his side. It's just an ant, don't worry about it. Luo Sheng spoke. His mental power just sensed that guy. The Reincarnator used his skills to check his side, as if he was frightened by the size of the magic army. After putting away the skills, he fled from here by rolling and crawling. His first goal now is only the kingdom of Gus. He has to care about other things as long as they don't hinder him. After all, Luo Sheng is not the kind of murderer who wants to kill a reincarnated person whenever he sees him. Kingdom of Gus. Your Majesty, the reason for the sudden dispatch of the guards has been found out. High Priest Hatu knelt down and bowed. Find out. King Gus's eyes lit up. Yes, my subordinates discovered that the leading knights of the 9 regiments of the guards army have all been mind-controlled. Mind control. Hearing this, King Gus's eyes suddenly darkened. Although he knew that there must be something wrong with the guards. But he never expected that the Goblin Knight commanding 9 legions would actually control his mind. Both he and High Priest Hatu's spiritual strength are among the best in the kingdom. He can detect any subordinates in the kingdom who are controlled by spiritual magic. Now that the 9 Goblin Knights were secretly controlled, neither he nor the High Priest Hatu could notice anything strange. King Gus's face showed a trace of solemnity. This also indirectly means that the spiritual power of the caster is higher than that of him and the High Priest. The caster's level is at least level 30, or even higher. Think carefully in your mind. King Gus said slowly. High Priest, tell me, is it possible that this mind control is the work of the High Priest USA of the Red Devil Kingdom? The location of the Tagos Kingdom and the other 5 Dark Goblin Kingdoms. In this vast inner domain, it can only be regarded as a remote edge somewhere. And in this remote place, except for the other 5 Goblin Kingdoms, he has never heard of those who have reached or even surpassed level 30. And combined with the current form, he couldn't help but think of a possibility. All this is the conspiracy of the Red Devil Kingdom. The purpose is to be able to use this reason to start war against him and even the other 4 countries. After all, the High Priest of the Red Devil Kingdom, Yusa, can now be regarded as the one with the highest attainment of abyss magic among all the Dark Goblin Lin Yi clan in the first layer of the abyss. Even High Priest Hatu felt ashamed of himself. High Priest Hatu heard His Majesty's speech. He hesitated for a while, shook his head, and did not agree with King Gus's point of view. Then he said, Great Your Majesty. The servant guessed that the caster might not be the High Priest Nyusa. Because I have noticed a faint breath of undead spells on the few knights under control. Undead spells. Hearing this, King Gus was slightly depressed. The breath of undead magic is the person who shot at the abyss mage of the undead clan. But there are no such high-level necromancers around here. Your Majesty, something is wrong. There was a screeching sound outside the door. It was also accompanied by the sudden big push of the palace door, which interrupted King Gus's thoughts. A dark goblin warrior walked quickly into the hall. What's wrong? The army of the Red Devil Kingdom defeated the guards defending the north, and now they are rushing towards this place in mighty force. What? When King Gus and High Priest Hatu heard this, their eyes widened. Now the kingdom of Gus is in critical condition. After regaining control of the guards, he asked all the guards to quickly withdraw to the territory for defense. On the north side, because it is close to the direction of the Red Devil Kingdom, the guards have the largest number of defenses. How did it get crushed all of a sudden? The goblin who reported the news was puzzled by King Gus. With a face full of fear, he said in a panic, the high priest of the Red Devil Kingdom suddenly descended on the northern border, and as soon as he made a move, the huge guard army was directly defeated. The last word of the goblin just fell. There was an ear-shattering crackling sound. The goblin warrior was silent for a moment, shutting his mouth. He knelt down on the head on the ground, raised his head slightly, and projected that ray of fear to King Gus. King Gus stood up from his burly body, and said hoarsely, I personally sent the high priest to go out. It seems that the Red Devil really thinks that he is the king. High priest, go to the treasury and help me get that blood slaughter axe. The word, blood massacre axe, made High Priest Hatu's face change slightly. Your Majesty, you want to go out of the people yourself. The honor of the kingdom of Guts must not be tarnished. This king has not exercised for nearly 10 years. Since he is so rampant in the Red Devil Kingdom, then let this king meet him. King Gus said in a low voice, with a fierce look in his eyes. Boom! The palace door that had just been closed was suddenly pushed open again. Only see. Another goblin warrior stumbled in. At the same time, he opened his mouth and exclaimed in a tone full of exclamation, Your Majesty. It's the Legion of the Undead. It's the Legion of the Undead. What undead army? Tell me clearly. King Gus frowned and let out a scold. Also accompanied by this huge voice and the strong coercion. The goblin warrior quickly knelt down. The traces of panic attached to that pale face gradually disappeared a little bit. Gulu. He swallowed the water. The goblin warrior's tone was slightly anxious, and his speech was still stammering. Seems to have seen something shocking. Gee, Gus, thousands of meters in front of the kingdom, I discovered that an army of undead is rapidly advancing towards the kingdom. Undead army. King Gus looked erratic. What's the situation? The goblin warrior nodded his head heavily, and said anxiously, in addition to the army of undead, there are many demons in the sky. Demon. Upon hearing these words, King Gus and the high priest opened their eyes wide in surprise. How could such a high-level abyss as the devil exist in the abyss? And the goblin warrior said a lot. Are you sure you read it right? King Gus asked. The goblin warrior kept shaking his head like a rattle drum. He was absolutely convinced that what he saw was the legendary demon, and there were many, many more. See the goblin warrior in such a posture. King Gus stepped out of the hall. Although the words of the goblin warrior sound too far-fetched, it is necessary to see for yourself. The palace of Gus was built luxuriously and magnificently, with a height of nearly 100 meters. When King Gus walked out of the palace, he could see the magnificent scenery in all directions. His eyes looked straight ahead. That is, King Gus with calm eyes. As if seeing some incredible picture, the pupils contracted into needles. That face and huge body seemed to be motionless like petrified strands in this instant. The land far away. The wind howled, and the world was sad. An army of skeletons that seemed to come from hell came towards this place. The will-o'-the-wisps burning in the eyes of those countless pairs of hollow skeletons looked like the flames of vengeance. Like thousands of blue flames floating. But it was not this scene that shocked King Gus. It was the red specter covering the sky above the army. Evil, demons. And there are so many, how is this possible? King Gus panicked. Even though he was so far apart, he could clearly feel that majestic demonic aura. This demonic aura, these are middle-level demons. The high priest Hatu also came to the side of King Gus, his eyes full of fear. Medium demon. King Gus, who was watching all this from a distance, then whispered, this shouldn't be, how come there are so many middle-level demons on the abyss level, and from the feeling, these demons are only in their early 20s. What the hell is? King Gus was a little confused for a while. Where did this daring demon and the army of undead come from? Your Majesty, what should we do now? High Priest Hatu turned to look at King Gus. Open all the magic circles of the kingdom. Call all the inner city personnel to prepare for the enemy. King Gus spoke, his eyes fixed on the front. Adertisement. Yes, moment. With a large army of demons, Shang, who is near the border of the kingdom of Gus, stands high in the sky. Looking at the inner city of the kingdom of Gus, several huge abyss circles rose up in an uproar. The magic circles are stacked one on top of the other, looking extremely gorgeous. It seems to have found this way. Shang smiled. Then let's start, let the blood soak this land. A natural disaster is coming. 3 pairs of magnificent wings of fallen angels spread out on the back. The traces of devilish energy emanating from the black wings, this most yin and evil force, seems to degenerate everything around it. Feel it, this is the power of the abyss. One thought came to Shang, who is thousands of meters high, overlooking this country. What is that? Look at the sky. What the hell is? Within the borders of the kingdom of Gus, the 20,000 goblin warriors who were about to fight this undead army raised their heads in unison. They noticed the sky above them. The originally blood-colored sky was suddenly covered by a large black mist that came from nowhere. The black mist rolled like waves in the ocean. However, the appearance of the black mist is obviously just the beginning. A huge spiral black hole emerged from that seemingly boundless sea of black mist. The black hole can't see the end at a glance, but from a distance, it seems like a black hole has been pierced out of the huge sky. Okay, so beautiful. A dark goblin, who was staring at the spinning black hole, murmured to himself. Those pupils gradually lost focus. He subconsciously opened his mouth, and strands of souls flew out of it. Float towards the black hole above. Wake up all of you. Don't stare at that black hole in the sky. A determined goblin knight at the scene struggled to wake up from the strange black hole in time. He hastily growled, but the sound seems to have no effect on the dark goblins immersed in the black hole. Seeing the countless strands of souls floating upwards, the chef green knight quickly took a big sword from his back. He held the hilt of the sword with both hands, and stabbed the sword towards the ground. Battle Soul Blood Formation. The big sword flickered with blood light, and then a beam of blood light shot into the air from a spar at the end of the hilt. Wow! A bloody magic circle unfolded. Under the illumination of the magic circle, the dark goblins immersed in the black hole woke up one after another. What's wrong with me? My body hurts so much, it seems like something has been sucked away. Seeing this, the goblin knight held his head high and roared loudly, "Don't look at that black hole in the sky, it will slowly control your mind. This is the opponent's trick, all soldiers are ready to meet the enemy. Drive these invaders out of our kingdom, and defend the land of the kingdom of Gus." Not far away, Shang quietly watched all this. He looked at the black hole that covered almost 2/3 of the Gus kingdom. The corner of his mouth curled up. Don't worry, this is only the first stage of natural disasters. This rare 6th level spell that he learned from the code is not only capable of this. A group of dark goblins in the battle spirit blood formation just obeyed what the dark goblin knight said. Stop looking up. There was a loud and heavy roar from the black hole in the headspace. But it's not so much a roar, it's more like an unknown raving from an indescribable thing. This babbling was like howling ghosts and gods, turning into sound waves and gradually spreading out. Just a moment, the strange words spread to the entire kingdom of Gus. This raving like a magic voice echoed in everyone's ears. Outside the palace, there's something wrong with this voice, and it's actually trying to invade my spirit. Listening to the endless babbling, Gus Wong narrowed his eyes. So sad. Immediately afterwards, he heard several screams of pain. He turned his head. I saw a few goblin warriors guarding both sides of the palace, and the soldiers in their hands fell. Half kneeling on the ground, they all held their heads with their hands, showing extremely painful looks. It was as if something was eroding the brain. King Gus could tell at a glance that this was the reason for the weird raving. Although it is difficult for the ravings to invade a powerful existence of level 30 like King Gus, it is still somewhat offensive to ordinary goblin fighters. Soul of the God of War. A cold drink. The chain mail on King Gus's body suddenly showed innumerable red lights. The red glow first formed a thick layer on the surface of his armor. Then release a wave of energy light. The light waves spread from the palace at an extremely fast speed until they stretched across the entire inner city of the kingdom. Many dark goblins in the inner city who were about to collapse and go mad because of their raving, slowly came to their senses after touching this light wave. A goblin stood up slowly and looked towards the direction where the energy light wave was released. It was from the palace of Gus in the middle of the inner city. He raised the weapon in his hand and shouted, "It's His Majesty King Gus who made the move. Long live your majesty. Down with those hateful invaders." For the voices of admiration and compliments from all sides in the inner city, King Gus didn't pay any attention to it. He looked up at the black hole. He lowered his head slightly again. He glanced at his palm, and spoke in a hoarse voice, "Even if the soul of the god of war is activated, can't it resist the negative effects?" King Gus could clearly feel that he was within the fog-shrouded range of the black hole. A small part of the power in the body was suppressed. Even if he activates the soul of the god of war, which can remove his negative influence, it is useless. This is at least an abyss spell on the 5th level of the rarity level. Is there such a powerful abyss master in the undead army? Thinking of this, King Gus's face turned ashen. Even he or High Priest Hatu could not cast such a high-level abyssal spell. Because if you want to cast rare abyss spells above level 5, you need to have at least level 35 mental power. Right now, this undead army coming from nowhere made him feel an unprecedented threat. Just as King Gus was racking his brains, thinking about how to deal with Luo Shang, he forgot a little. That is, his god of war soul can only cover the inner city of the kingdom from being attacked by words, not the entire kingdom. Border. This sound. The 21st level goblin knight with the highest rank in the scene couldn't help kneeling on one knee. He held the sword in his left hand, and firmly grasped his hideous and painful face with his right hand. Those ravings seemed to have countless strange existences, whispering in his ears continuously. Although these words could not completely erode him, they made his entire spiritual world very uncomfortable. Like thousands of needles piercing through his brain. Enduring the pain, he glanced at the other dark goblin warriors from the corner of his eye. Can be just shifted in sight. He saw a dark goblin kneeling on the ground, struggling in pain, suddenly got up. Kill. The dark goblin's eyes didn't have any blood in his eyes, only darkness. The entire pupil seemed to be watered with ink. He let out a loud roar, and the sharp sword in his hand slashed towards the surrounding goblins. And this scene, more and more. Those dark goblins completely controlled by the ravings are madly slaughtering everything around them. Originally ready to go, the imposing goblin army. The war has not yet begun, and now it is self-defeating. Wake me up, the dark goblin knight growled. But relying on the sound alone is obviously useless. At the same time, destroy everything. Luo Shang, who was standing high in the sky, slightly raised his right hand. The army of undead at your feet, and the army of blood demons occupying a small piece of sky in front, picture Chinese medicine. The sky and the earth shook together, rumbling. It's like a dragon roaring. This picture of the undead, like a natural disaster, falls into the eyes of anyone, and can feel extremely shocking and throbbing. Countless undead skeletons rushed towards the city wall on the border with swords in their hands. But at this moment, most of the goblin archers who were originally guarding the city wall were harassed by that raving. I have already knelt down. Although a small number of goblins can barely resist, their strength is also greatly reduced. Invaders, don't even think about stepping into the territory of my kingdom of Gus. A dark goblin staggered to his feet. He let out a roar. Facing the skeleton soldiers who came up by climbing the wall in front, they swung their swords and charged away. But he just took a few steps forward. What's going on? The goblin warrior suddenly discovered his field of vision and suddenly looked towards the ground. And getting closer. Plop! A bloody head rolled to the ground. Out of the corner of the goblin warrior's eyes, he suddenly caught a glimpse of a headless corpse continuously gushing out blood. Wait, isn't that corpse his? In his gradually blurred vision, he saw a tall and burly figure standing behind his corpse. The shadow hunter held two slender half-moon scimitars in both hands. He held up one of the blades, which was stained with bright red blood. The wolf tongue stuck out and licked it lightly. After savoring it carefully, the shadow hunter spat out a mouthful of blood with a "hoo" sound. The blood of the inferior race is really dirty. That pair of eyes that were as sharp as blades pierced straight into the kingdom in the distance. There should be good prey there. The goblin warriors guarding the city wall were killed instantly. The vast undead army began to kill the goblin army where the goblin knight was. But this 20,000 dark goblin army is now under the influence of natural disasters. The momentum is declining, and the strength is declining. On the other hand, the situation of the undead army in the natural disaster is completely opposite. Not only were they not affected in the slightest, but they were also boosted to a certain extent. For the glory of the kingdom, even if I die in battle, I will not back down. The goblin knight looked at the undead army coming like a black tide, and roared high. Your Majesty King Gus, please grant me supreme power. A black spar appeared in his hand. This is what His Majesty King Gus gave earlier. He crushed the spar forcefully. Crack, from the shattered spar. Wisps of black air rose densely, and then all of them penetrated into his nostrils. But only a few seconds passed. The momentum of this goblin knight's whole body was visible to the naked eye. Wisps of evil black flames emitted from the light silver armor on his body. At the same time, the body size has also increased several times. What? Goblin Knight's roar. Horrific power formed shock waves one after another, and the ground under his feet cracked countless cracks. The strength of the original 21st level has been upgraded to 23rd level in a short period of time. Compress all life and make its power continuously break through in a short period of time. It seems that the kingdom of Gus really has a lot of means. Luo Shang noticed that in addition to this knight, some dark goblins who had not been infected by the ravings also took out this black spar one after another. After crushing, the level continued to rise. However, death is a preordained thing. No matter how you change it, it will be futile. Luo Shang is like a chess player, overlooking all this. The goblin knight whose strength had soared suddenly got rid of the erosion from those weird ravings. He held up the big sword in his hand, and slashed out with one sword. The fierce sword energy directly killed the skeleton soldiers within 100 meters in front of them on the spot. Invaders, let's go together. I, Katamo Jaffe, will bury you all here. Katamo raised his sword and drank. His beastly eyes first looked around, and then raised his head to look at the terrifying lava demons in the sky. Without waiting for him to make the next move, the ignorant and lowly creatures dared to speak loudly in front of the army of our Lord. Katamo heard a cold death sound. He lowered his head and noticed the gate of the city wall that had been forcibly broken. In addition to the army of skeletons, another black iron cavalry walked out in shock. The iron cavalry is neat in uniform, just like the imperial guards of a powerful empire. 80 eternal fallen dark riders lined up in a herringbone line, and the heart-piercing chill spread out from this black army ever since. That clanking killing intent actually condensed into substance, turning into bursts of cold wind blowing in all directions. Even Katamo, who was in a state of berserk anger, felt the murderous chill at this moment, and the anger in his heart seemed to be a little bit colder. He originally thought that the most fearsome thing about this undead army was the huge demon army. I didn't expect that besides this, there is such a death cavalry in this undead army. But Katamo didn't show the slightest fear because of this. Holding swords in both hands, he shouted, "Kingdom of Gus is invincible." The power of war. The black flames on the armor spread and enveloped his whole body, and Kata rushed up. This lightning-fast speed is like a bunch of black meteors. The fiery temperature overflows on that streamer surface. The target of his attack was the eternal fallen Dark Knight who was the leader. Although this death cavalry army is extremely powerful, but in terms of Ben, he is still superior in terms of level and even in all aspects. Even if he, Katamo, died here today, he would bring a few of them to be buried with him. Hey, watching Katamo coming on a rampage. Under the cross helmet worn on the head of the eternal fallen Dark Rider, a disdainful cold air rolled out. Slowly raised the sharp sword in his hand, and pulled lightly with his left hand holding the rein. The undead horse riding under his feet quickly charged away. The speed is not weaker than Katamo. The two streamers clashed. Boom. The low-pitched and high-pitched collision echoes are endless. A big sword collided with a thin sword, rubbing off endless sparks. The ground thousands of meters below his feet was shaken by this force. This guy's strength is obviously only at level 20, but it's almost the same as mine, and even slightly surpasses it. But after a surprise in my heart, the icy cold voice of the eternal fallen knight resounded again. Is this all your strength? Katamo's heart skipped a beat when he heard these words. He slowly set his shocking eyes on the eternal fallen Dark Rider riding a war horse in front of him. Although he couldn't see the face under the knight's helmet, but it seems to be able to see a playful look from it. Looking at all this, Katamo felt an ominous premonition in his heart. Impossible. Does this guy still have energy left? Katamo couldn't believe it, and all this seems to be going in the worst direction in Katamo's mind. Only saw the knight's sharp sword that clashed with his great sword. A blue will-o'-the-wisp glowed from top to bottom of the sword body. Under the burly armor of the eternal fallen Dark Rider, bursts of surging abyssal power surged like waves. Boom! Katamo could clearly feel the powerful force rising from that sword. How is this possible? Katamo's pupils contracted. His thick arms bulged like boulders. At this moment, even the big sword in his hand is trembling constantly. The strength of the opponent has suddenly increased several times. This was completely beyond his expectations. One must know that the guy in front of him is only level 20. But the strength is so much higher than my 23 level. If he hadn't seen this kind of thing with his own eyes, he would have found it hard to believe it for the rest of his life. Naturally, Katamo didn't know. Although the level of the eternal fallen Dark Knight in front of him is 20, it is under the group skill increase of the natural disaster and even the Dark Knight. The real strength has already surpassed the 20 levels written on the surface. Boom! This tyrannical and powerful absolute power quickly overwhelmed Katamo himself, and he slashed out with a sword. The body of the former flew upside down, like a cannonball. Several small hills were shattered in succession. Seeing this, the eternal fallen Dark Rider didn't want to give the other party a chance to breathe. He rode the undead horse under his feet and charged out. The war horse opened slightly, and let out a piercing roar. Just a dozen breaths. It was already in front of Katamo, who staggered and just stood up. Although Katamo was disgraced, his battle armor was also broken. But his eyes were extremely bloodshot, revealing the meaning of endless war. Warriors of the kingdom of guts never say die. He raised his big sword, roaring of course. Dark flame sword slash. Clatter. Wisps of black flames covering the surface of Katamo's armor wound around the body of the great sword. Drink. He held up his big sword, and headed towards the eternal fall in front of him. A sword wave of black flames slashed out, and this overbearing power turned all the land it passed into a piece of scorched earth. Let you see my full blow. Katamo watched, just as he was thinking about how the opponent's mind was going to take his move. Unexpectedly, the mouth of the undead horse riding under Katamo's feet opened wide. Immediately, a large mouthful of blue-white icy cold breath came out. The cold breath seemed to come from the bottom of the abyss, and the extreme cold power instantly dropped the surrounding temperature to 0. The cold breath and the black flame collided, and the battle between ice and fire was vividly staged at the point of confrontation. Wow, two completely different forces, the waves of water, heat and air generated are endless. Go to hell, angrily shouted. I only saw Katamo taking advantage of the collision of the flames and the cold to block the perspective of the two sides. Jumping up, he slashed at Yangxiang's head with a sword. And the eternal fallen Dark Knight also saw this Katamo, who jumped up suddenly. The blood in the helmet flashed. Let me grant you death. Eternal fallen Dark Rider jumps from his horse. Bang! The battle between swords and swords reappeared. But the result is not much different from before. The eternal fallen Dark Knight, who had an absolute advantage in strength, quickly suppressed Katamo. Your confidence in your own strength is your biggest shortcoming. However, Katamo, who was at a disadvantage, said this first. Then he opened his mouth. Red flame magic ball. A small magic circle appeared in an uproar from the mouth. The scorching flames quickly gathered into a big fireball from the eyes of the formation and shot at the head of the eternal fallen Dark Knight. Bang! A violent explosion set off on the knight's head. See this scene. Katamo was all smiles. At such a close distance, he took his magic ball hard. He doesn't believe that there is nothing wrong with the other party. Is this your last confidence? A chilling sound pierced through the black smoke. Katamo's pupils narrowed. When all the smoke dissipated, an unscathed cross helmet stepped into the eyes. The destructive magic ball just now didn't seem to have hurt it at all. This is magic immunity. Katamo noticed that under the Dark Knight's helmet, there were extremely subtle purple magic lines flashing. The scorching flames released by the magic ball before were all swallowed up by these tiny spider web-like magic lines. Death. The icy cold sound of the scythe being as cold as death made Kata, who was in shock, suddenly come back to his senses. But even when he came back to his senses, Katamo had nothing to do. A pitch-black sword that reflects the cold light. A sword shook the big sword in his hand, and slashed towards him swiftly. PFF'd. A shower of blood splashed in the sky. The head of the Dark Goblin Knight fell to the ground together with the corpse. Those Dark Goblin warriors who are still stubbornly resisting are left, watching Master Katamo die. They were all shocked. Many of them felt ashamed all of a sudden. Even someone as strong as Lord Katamo couldn't deal with any knight in that death night. Can they really win now on their own? There are Dark Goblin warriors looking at their comrades lying in pools of blood in all directions. The fear in my heart spread infinitely. I don't want to die yet, sorry everyone. With a cry of fear, the Dark Goblin warrior decisively turned and fled. And many Dark Goblins who also had fear in their hearts turned around and followed the former's figure to escape. The enemy of my lord must be slaughtered, kill. The eternal fallen knight who had just beheaded Katamo swung the blood sword in his hand. The blade pointed directly at the fleeing Dark Goblin warriors. A group of eternal fallen knights, together with a large group of eternal fallen knights, surrounded and killed the Dark Goblins who were trying to escape. The picture looks like a giant wolf surrounding a flock of sheep. Ah, no, I can surrender. You bloody invaders, King Gus will avenge us. Countless Dark Goblins wailed, screamed, and were angry. Fragmented corpses, severed heads, gurgling blood seemed to gather into a sea of blood. All of a sudden, the earth was full of stench, and corpses piled up into a mountain of corpses, outlining a horrific scene of hell. Luo Shang watched the slaughter. There was no pity in his eyes, but there was a trace of joy in his eyes. Experience is really easy to come by. About 3 or 4 minutes. The 20,000 troops guarding the frontier were completely slaughtered by the undead army. Congratulations on your upgrade to level 28. Luo Shang glanced at the level increase that popped up in the lower right corner, and couldn't help sighing. Sure enough, the level of large-scale wars increases quickly. A month and a half ago, his level has only been raised by 2 levels. Now a large-scale war is directly worth a month of his time. After destroying these 6 Dark Goblin kingdoms, the level should be raised to over 30 in one go. The field of vision looks into the distance. At this moment, the Lava Gorefiend army has approached the inner city of Gus Kingdom. The soul is almost harvested. It's time to start the second stage of the natural disaster. The spell skill of natural disasters is divided into 3 stages. Now it is only the first stage, but to open the second stage, it will take a certain amount of time, and the Great Soul is the energy zone to open. The souls of the 20,000 Dark Goblins just now were all devoured by the natural disaster. Therefore, the prerequisites for opening the second stage of natural disasters have been met. He raised his head and lifted his right arm lightly. A purple magic circle emerges from the imprint. Above the dark sky, that abyssal black hole is expanding rapidly at a speed visible to the naked eye. Kingdom of Guts, Inner City. King Gus stood still outside the palace, holding the ground with both hands. His eyes were fixed on the blood demon army that was constantly approaching here. Wei, Your Majesty, there is something urgent to report. A Dark Goblin warrior hurried up and knelt on one knee behind King Gus. What's the matter? Just now, the 20,000 troops on the front line led by Master Katamo have been wiped out. The whole army was wiped out, like a heavy hammer smashed down. King Gus turned his head stiffly. Those unbelievable eyes looked at the Dark Goblin who reported, the whole army was wiped out. Feel the terrifying oppression from His Majesty. This Dark Goblin was walking on thin ice for an instant, trembling with fear. He only dared to tremble in an extremely hoarse voice. Yes, yes. King Gus, who heard this sentence, turn your head again and look at the front boundary. The eyes are full of strange colors that cannot be described in words. Those 20,000 troops are all elite soldiers from his guards. Coupled with the dark stone bestowed by him, it stands to reason that even if Katamo can't stop these undead army from advancing, he can resist it for a few hours. In less than 10 minutes, the entire army was wiped out. King Gus felt nothing but the Arabian Nights. Because in his opinion, among the undead army, the demon army with the most difficult strength flew completely towards the inner city. Katamo led 20,000 goblin warriors, and Yuan couldn't resist for even a few minutes. It's really trash. How did this king raise all of you trash? King Gus couldn't help scolding angrily. Hand down the king's order, all fighters are ready to meet the enemy. After a while, when the Gorefiend army had reached the edge of the inner city. Attack! All the goblin priests of Gus Kingdom will release the abyss spells prepared in advance after standing in one position. Clatter! The pitch-black earth was pierced by countless bright rainbow lights, and the momentum was terrifying. A lava Gorefiend watched these firefly-like magic attacks. There was a grin on his face. It's so pitifully weak, let me show you a real abyss spell. The lava curse. Dozens of lava gore fiends used this technique together. Thousands of lava fireballs quickly condensed in the air. The blazing hot flames made the dark sky seem to turn into a piece of burning sky. The scenes at the scene were like fire raining from the sky, and the terrifying temperature bathed the entire air. It's all advanced 5th level spells. Seeing this, many priests on the side wall of the inner city changed their expressions drastically. Whether in the abyss, or the ministers of other worlds, the spell gap of each level is very different. Right now, the abyssal spells they are casting are basically at the intermediate level or even the first level of advanced level. Not to mention the advanced spells used by these demons are still powerful abyss spells of the demon system. It is simply difficult to compare with it. Those meteor-like fireballs easily devoured and broke the priest's spell, facing the protective circle surrounding the inner city. Boom! Like fireworks exploding, the world of countless sparks splashed in all directions. The magic circle shook violently, but there was no sign of rupture. The core of this king's magic circle is the devil's core bestowed by the Lord of the Underworld 100 years ago. How can you break it if you want to break it? King Gus watched all this. Immediately, he raised his left arm, and roared, "The supreme god of war Cavil, please give us a great will that is enough to defeat all enemies." Adertisement. Blood Beast Will. At the foot of King Gus, a blood formation suddenly appeared. The next moment, a blood mark appeared on the foreheads of all the dark goblins in the inner city. The dark goblin who was given the mark suddenly entered a state of blood boiling. The fear originally caused by the blood demon was swept away in an instant. All fighters, follow me to kill these invading enemies. King Gus raised the blood slaughter axe in his hand and roared loudly. Hong Yin covers the entire inner city. Kill, kill, kill. The imprint made everyone enter a state of hyperactivity and bloodthirsty. The dark goblin priests on the side wall also quickly raised their staffs, ready to attack again. King Gus watched all this. The whispers in my heart continued. With the energy of the magic circle, it can also support several rounds of fire and rain attacks on the scale just now. Now High Priest Hatu is preparing something. As long as the preparations are completed, the army of undead who come from nowhere, or even the army of red devils who are approaching from the election side, are nothing to be afraid of at all. Abiel, oh Abiel, since your red demon kingdom is so rampant, don't blame me for doing this. King Gus said coldly in his heart. When he looked up to the sky again, eyebrows tightened. What do these demons want to do? He noticed that the demons surrounding the magic circle suddenly stopped attacking. Instead, they spread out, as if trying to avoid something. That is, as if he had discovered something. King Gus narrowed his eyes slightly. The pitch-black black hole in the distance expanded several times without his knowing it. And as the black hole rotates, there are bursts of dark green thunder entangled in the hole and even in the black mist. It looked very strange, but this is obviously just an appetizer. King Gus saw it from the dark black hole. Gradually drilled a mountain peak. Yes, it is a mountain hanging upside down. But instead of calling it a mountain, it is more appropriate to call it Corpse Peak. The mountain peaks are all made up of white bones, and they are all white. And on this towering and upside-down peak of bones and corpses, there are many strange and grotesque heads. These heads, whose faces are as pale as paper, rolled their eyes white, and their faces were ferocious, as if they were integrated with the corpse peak. Their mouths slowly opened and closed, as if to say something. At first glance, it only feels very infiltrating, like a zombie. And such a horrifying scene also made King Gus silent. because those heads covered with corpse peaks were exactly the 20,000 dark goblin guards he sent before. Moreover, King Gus still saw an extremely familiar face among the thousands of heads. Katamo. King Gus spat out 3 words heavily. I saw a head at the top of this corpse peak, which was the head of Katamo Jaffe, one of the 9 knights in the former guards. For this level of undead spells, the caster must be at least level 34 or 5. King Gus, who had an ominous premonition in his heart, shouted, "All fighters turn on defense." It was also at the moment when King Gus's words just fell. At the top of the corpse peak, Katamo's pale and ferocious face opened its mouth wide open. A faint green light gradually gathers in the mouth. Boom! The faint green light wave is ejected like an extremely violent laser wave. The air pierces Cheng Hong, and with a flick of a finger, the light waves hit the magic circle. The original seemingly indestructible magic circle. Unexpectedly, within a few breaths, countless of New Ocean's densely packed cracks appeared. Until there was a soft click. The magic circle was completely torn apart. The light waves hit the surface of the other 2 magic circles. But it is clear that the energy of the former is too much higher than the limit that the latter can bear. The double magic circle shattered one after another. Boom! The huge Gus Kingdom inner city was immediately engulfed by the dark green light. The lethality is pretty good, and the skill of natural disasters is really not a loss. Luo Shang, who was in the distance, was delighted to see thousands of killing messages jumping out from below. And back to the inner city. In the blink of an eye, the most prosperous inner city of the Kingdom of Gus has been turned into a sea of flames. Even the Palace of Gus, which symbolizes the status and respect of King Gus, was also torn apart and fell to the ground. And without the magic circle as a defensive feint. The Gorefiend army also started a massacre. A lava Gorefiend tore a goblin police station in half with both hands. Some lava Gorefiends spit out a sea of lava in one breath, burning hundreds of goblins to death. Court death. Standing in the center, King Gus saw his people being slaughtered like this, and couldn't help roaring angrily. Axe shock. The blood slaughter axe in his hand slashed down. The ground in front of it was completely shattered, forming 3 bloody shock waves and sending them out. Shock waves and light ripples are like earth dragons turning over, causing the earth to tremble again and again. Slash towards the lava Gorefiends directly in front of them. And the lava Gorefiend can naturally feel the surging power contained in the 3 shock waves. Just about to fly to the sky to evade. King Gus's rough and resonant voice immediately enveloped the inner city. Hiding. Since you are the king of the king, you don't want to leave alive. Earth pull Xingyan. The blood slaughter axe in King Gus's hand slammed into the ground. I saw countless gloomy lights bursting out from the broken ground cracks. These dim lights are full of strong gravitational force. Pull the lava Gorefiend who was about to fly into the air back to the surface. The shock wave came head on, and the ferocious oppressive feeling was like a mountain peak falling down. Several lava Gorefiends shattered and turned into lava. So what about the middle demon? After all, it's only level 20, and the citizens of the Kingdom of Turges must pay the price with their lives. King Gus stared angrily, but just a minute or 2 after his voice fell, he noticed that the blood demon that he killed with the shock wave of the stick was at the position. The lava actually started to bounce. The slurry turned into slowly floating up. At a speed visible to the naked eye, he re-outlined a body shape. Moment. The lava Gorefiend stood in front of King Gus unscathed again. Face this scene. King Gus was naturally dumbfounded. How is it possible? He could watch with his own eyes, those lava Gorefiends perishing under his nose. Even the magma on the ground has no life breath at all. Even if the opponent is a special abyssal race like a demon, it is absolutely impossible to have the ability of rebirth and resurrection. Not to mention, these demons are only at level 20 right now. But in the current situation, he couldn't help it. Resurrect one king and kill another one. I want to see how many times you have the chance to be resurrected. King Gus gritted his teeth, and swung the blood slaughter axe again. Boom! Looking at the inner city of the Kingdom of Gus, where the earth was shaking and the mountains were shaking, and the flames were flying everywhere. Luo Shang couldn't help narrowing his eyes and said, as expected of being the strongest in the Dark Goblin Kingdom, it really isn't easy. With one's own strength, at the same time against the huge army of blood demons. Ordinary abyssal creatures would have already been reduced to ashes under the lava of the Gorfiend. However, this also indirectly proves how powerful an abyssal creature that has reached level 30 is. Fortunately, I used a little trick before to make their 6 dark goblin kingdoms turn against each other, and let them all consume each other. Otherwise, if not done so, now I have taken the liberty to attack the kingdom of Gus. There is a high probability that other dark goblin kingdoms will support Gus' kingdom, and then he will need to deal with 6 dark goblin kingdoms at the same time. The stakes are huge. Even if he wins, it will definitely only be the result of a miserable victory, and the gains outweigh the losses. Master. Lilith's voice was as crisp as a light bell. Say. Lilith noticed that the Red Devil army in the distance was approaching quickly. Lilith stood behind Luo Shang, lowered her head, respectfully. The army of the Red Devil Kingdom. Luo Shang paused. He almost forgot about it. If he remembered correctly, the attacking army sent by the Red Devil Kingdom was not weak. It seems that there are more than one strong man above level 20 alone. Do you want to take part of the Eternal Fallen Knight and Lava Gorfiend to deal with it, or? See Luo Shang thoughtful. Lilith immediately asked Ying and said, please rest assured, the Supreme Lord. Everything can be handled by Lilith. See here. Luo Shang turned his head. Then I will leave it to you. Do you need to send other people to assist you? No need. Lilith alone is enough. On the beautiful and coquettish face, the winking eyes that can seduce people's hearts and souls, there is no trace of emotion at this moment. It was as if the mighty Red Devil army in the distance was like an ant in his eyes. And for Lilith's answer, Luo Shang was obviously a little surprised in his heart. Because Lilith's current level is 24. And the number of the Red Devil Kingdom's army is around 30,000, not to mention that there are quite a few of them around 2,000. But seeing Lilith so confident, Luo Shang didn't say anything anymore. But he nodded slightly. That's good. After Lilith passed away in a flash, he bowed his head slightly. His eyes and thoughts returned to the inner city of Gus Kingdom. Looking at the burly figure who looked like the reincarnation of the god of war, he smiled and said, are you going all out? Or are you trying to delay time and wait for the high priest to break the seal? Bide. Wearing the ring of the dead, his spiritual power has naturally been greatly improved by leaps and bounds. He could clearly sense that under the inner city, there was still a local official of Juin hidden. This moment, there is an incomparably surging magic power constantly gathering in that underground palace. And as early as a month ago, a message came from Viliva to tell himself. Under the underground palace of Gus Kingdom, sealing an abyssal creature up to level 35. Now that High Priest Hatu is not in the inner city, the only possibility is that he is in the underground palace. Although Viliva's current level is only 23, with the blessing of the remains and the Dragon Law robe, it shouldn't be a problem to fight against the High Priest. The demise of the Kingdom of Gus is just a matter of speed or slowness. Kingdom of Guts, Inner City. King Gus, who is fully activated, is fighting bloody battles. His whole body was burning with the will of the Beast King, and the blood brilliance of honey was completely condensed on the top and bottom of his armor. It's no wonder that Katamo died so quickly. I didn't expect such a death cavalry army to hide in this army of undead. King Gus's eyes were extremely serious, and he stared at the eternal fallen Dark Knight ahead. Every eternal fallen Dark Knight seems to have stepped out of hell, and the cold wind of death is accompanied by the surrounding. The cavalry army is formed in a herringbone line, and it is divided into 3. There is a mark of undead skeleton floating on the back. This imprint seems to gather the immortal will of the entire cavalry army, burning with a gloomy fire. As my lord ordered, kill them all. The leading eternal fallen knight drew out his long sword and sounded the horn of attack. Behind, a knight named Eternal Fallen Darkness rushed out at a lightning-like speed. They headed towards the goblin warriors who were still desperately resisting in this inner city. For the glory of the Kingdom of Guts. Ah, no. Watching the remaining soldiers around fall down one by one. If it wasn't for this domain that suppressed part of the power in my body, how could you be my opponent? King Gus's ferocious beast face was filled with endless anger. Under the eyelids, there is still a trace of unsightly and incomprehensible emotion. Strange, it's been so long, is the High Priest still okay? At the same time, under the underground palace, the High Priest Hatu was suspended in the empty palace. Holding a stick in his right hand, he chanted the abyss spell. His back, dozens of blue fireballs condensed and flew towards Veliva in front. And Veliva, who was wearing a dragon law robe. Disregard this technique. Golden dragon illusion. Strands of golden halo overflowed from the dazzling golden robe. The halo gathered in one place and turned into a phantom of a golden dragon more than 10 meters long. The golden dragon spread its wings high. Its body was not big, but it was extremely mighty, and its dragon eyes were as blazing as the sun. Jinlong roared softly. The dozens of fireballs shattered without attacking and scattered in midair. Epic. The high priest of Hadu turned pale and shouted. All eyes fell on Veliva's golden robe. He really didn't expect that Veliva actually has such a level of secret removal. Since the opponent was sent to where the Black Forest is. In just 2 months, there have been such earth-shaking changes. Not only has his strength soared, but he has also obtained epic treasures. The kingdom of Gus and his majesty have treated you well. Veliva, why did you betray the kingdom? High Priest Hadu asked loudly. Betrayal. A good bird chooses a tree to live in, not to mention that if you are a high priest, you will also encounter the same thing as me. I believe your choice will be the same as mine. Veliva whispered softly. What do you mean? What do you mean? Of course it's literal. High Priest Hadu, do you know what I saw in the Black Forest not long ago? Veliva did not rush to make a move, but said such a sentence instead. Seeing this, High Priest Hadu also frowned. For so many years, in his opinion, Veliva's loyalty to the kingdom cannot be placed at the forefront. But at least it is an existence that can sacrifice its life for the kingdom. Now that he has only been to the Black Forest for 2 months, not only his strength has changed drastically, but his temperament has also undergone drastic changes. Moreover, there is no magical aura controlled by others on the other party. So this made him wonder why Veliva suddenly rebelled and prevented him from opening the seal. Veliva's head is facing upwards. The fire that burned in those empty eyes. It seemed to think of something extremely shocking, and it jumped violently. I saw the Lord of the Abyss who came to the world. Lord of the Abyss. High Priest Hadu frowned. Yes, and the great and supreme Lord of the Abyss gave me a new life there. Veliva's voice became more and more excited, and even stretched out his arms. 2 golden bony arms stretched out tremblingly from under the golden robe. He raised his hands high, as if he was grateful for the kindness that the life of the Abyss had given him. And the High Priest Hadu on one side. For the first time, he set his sights on Veliva's remains of the undead. Because the dragon magic robe can block the spiritual power of the High Priest of Hadu. So he could only see the figure of Veliva in the robe, but he couldn't see the specific appearance inside. Now because of Veliva's initiative to raise his arms and open his robe to block it. Let the High Priest Hadu see the true form of Veliva's transformation into an immortal holy mage. The bones of the undead that floated like gold were as stunning as jadeite. On the inch by inch of the golden bones, there are extremely fine purple gold restrictions. High Priest Hadu just took a look. The spiritual sea in his head seemed to be pierced by a sharp golden light. He had to quickly raise a mental barrier to block the front. This is. You have become epic. High Priest Hadu exclaimed incoherently. But then he shook his head hastily again. With his eyes wide open, he denied, impossible. Your level is clearly only 23. Epic level powerhouses must reach level 80. But the incomparable powerful aura right now is clearly something that can only be possessed by stepping into the epic level. He just felt that the soul and the body seemed to be double oppressed, as if there was a sense of suffocation. However, High Priest Hadu had also read many ancient books. After careful observation, quickly guess another possibility. You are the remains of other epic powerhouses. High Priest Hadu said in surprise. Good. Veliva smiled and nodded. All that I have now was bestowed by the Supreme Lord of the Abyss himself. Those excited words were full of compliments and admiration for Luo Shang. While he was speaking, there is also a hint of pride in the empty eyes. Because he could feel the scorching gaze thrown by the High Priest. In addition to fear and surprise, there is also a trace of greed and desire, even envy. The remains of an epic-level powerhouse are worth far more than epic-level treasures to people like them whose blood race has long been destined. After all, with a strong body, not only can you have a longer life, but most importantly, the shackles that prevented you from continuing to improve your level due to your own weak blood talent will also be untied. High Priest, the destruction of the kingdom of Gus is already doomed. Even if the devil comes here, it will not be able to change what is about to happen. On the basis of a little love between you and me, I can give you a happy death. Vileva said calmly, although his current level is 7 levels lower than that of the High Priest himself. But under the blessing of the robe and the remains, the real strength has long been on par with him, and in terms of mental strength alone, he is even higher than the opponent by a few chips. How to die? HMPH. Who will win and who will lose is still undecided. 0. High Priest Hatu's expression restrained, and he snorted coldly. The great black curse demon god, Hatu Garland, hereby request to summon your disciples to come to this place. The loud voice spread throughout the underground palace, and he held up the blood spar staff in his hand. A dazzling blood light shot out from the spar instantly, pouring into the roof of the palace. Next second, this vast underground palace trembled slightly, and bursts of fine stone powder fell from the top. From the corner of his eyes, Vileva noticed 2 black abyss circles floating on the left and right walls of the underground palace. The 2 abyssal magic circles emitted a trace of extremely weak power of the demon god. As the dark magic light flickers, black disciples walked out of the magic circle one by one. These demons come in different shapes, including tigers, wolves, and humans. The only common feature is that the whole body is turbid, like the structure of dirty sewage. Roar. There were several high-pitched roars. Hundreds of demons rushed towards Vileva in midair. The scene was cloudy, like a black tide rushing in. Under the territory of the Supreme Lord of the Abyss, how can there be other disciples of demon gods appearing? Vileva whispered, "Dark Thunder Curse." A magic circle appeared behind him. Boom! A thunderclap like a thunderbolt from the blue suddenly struck, and countless black thunderbolts struck out immediately. The ferocious thunderous majesty enveloped the underground palace here. It's like turning this place into a minefield. Bang bang bang. Under the attack of the dark thunder, the bodies of those disciples of the demon god collapsed. Just a moment, hundreds of disciples of the demon god turned into nothing. Rare spell. High Priest Hatu raised his eyebrows in surprise. Obviously, he did not expect that Vileva could learn rare spells after obtaining the remains of an epic powerhouse. You must know that in the first layer of the abyss, only those powerful abyss lords can master rare spells. Take a deep breath. However, what about rare spells? I want to see how much magic power you have enough to use. In his opinion, such a powerful rare spell consumes only a lot of magic power. Although Wei, 987, Liwa now has the blessing of an epic magic weapon, but the level is after all 23, and the magic power in his body is limited. He didn't believe that the opponent's rare spells like the Dark Lightning Curse could be cast infinitely. With a wave of the staff, in the magic circle on the wall, a steady stream of disciples of the demon god appeared. They rushed towards crazy Vileva. Apprentices are endless things. Vileva, you think too highly of yourself. I want to see how many times your magic power is enough for you to cast such spells. Looking at several dark thunders that were coming towards him. After the High Priest Hatu cast several defensive spells to barely stop him, he sneered. The demon god is the supreme existence in the top row in the abyss. You can cast your own miracle into the layers of the abyss and even other big worlds as you like. The miracle can transform any creature into its own believers or even family members. The dependents are special existences separated between believers and dependents. Those devil believers who want to become members of their families are in the process of transforming their families. Because his own mental power is not strong enough for some other reasons, the transformation of the dependents failed. That's why he became a bloodthirsty and nondescript monster like the disciples now, who have no reason, no emotions and 6 desires, and only know how to kill. Moreover, disciples, the alienated products of demon god believers, can be found in almost all worlds, with a huge number. Even in the heaven that claims to be holy and bright today, there are disciples. Vileva, this priest will let you know what the price of madness is. He whispered while manipulating the magic circle. A black clay pot appeared in the right hand. PFF'd. High Priest Hatu bit the tip of his tongue. A mouthful of bright red blood was spit into the clay pot. Abyssal GU Python in the ancient darkness, heed my call and come here. With the chanting of bursts of abyss spells, the pot shook violently. The clay pot, which seemed to be only the size of a palm, suddenly burst into countless cold green lights. The green light rushed to the top, as if it had dyed the huge underground palace. Immediately afterwards, a green python with a body only as thick as an arm crawled out slowly. But this is obviously just the opening. This strange green python opened its mouth, and its size grew at a speed visible to the naked eye. From the original length of a few meters, it grew to nearly 100 meters in an instant. Like a titanic snake, the abyssal GU python opened its mouth wide and let out a deafening roar. That huge figure seems to be able to destroy the entire underground palace with a slight movement. Viliva naturally also watched this scene. Abyss GU python. The skeleton fire in his eyes was slightly surprised. After all, an abyssal creature like an abyssal GU python is a powerful species in the middle of the abyss. And an adult abyssal GU python must be at least level 50. Although this abyssal GU python is still in its infancy, its level has reached the 29th level. Unexpectedly, the high priest secretly raised this powerful abyssal creature. It was beyond his expectation. Wow, the eyes of the abyss GU python are like the eyes on the edge of a blade. The huge body exudes an absolute coldness, which makes people feel chilling. Against Viliva, the high priest Hatu didn't show any fear on the surface. But the heart has long regarded this battle as a decision of life and death. He knows how powerful an epic treasure is in the remains of an epic powerhouse. Naturally, he didn't dare to be careless, and chose to use all his whole cards in one go. Roar! The abyssal GU python spewed out a mouthful of dark green mist, shooting towards Viliva. Purgatory flame snake. 9 fire snakes of the same size as the GU python suddenly soared out of the 9 flame formations summoned by Viliva. The picture is like a dragon and a phoenix dancing. The fiery snakes opened their bloody mouths and spewed out 9 ferocious pillars of red flames. The hot temperature seemed to turn this place into a purgatory on earth. Bang! There was a loud bang first. The 2 attacks collided violently, like water and fire colliding together, giving off a sizzling, steaming quality. Countless wisps of white mist rise slowly. You don't need to chant an abyss spell, you can instantly cast a high-level 9th level spell. The power of the epic level bone is really powerful. Seeing this scene, the high priest Hatu still couldn't help being amazed. At the same time, the cloudy eyes lowered. An emotion called longing added a little more. He is now trapped in the bottleneck realm of level 30, and it has been almost 40 years. For 40 years he has been hoping to go one step further. If this epic body can be given to him, he will definitely be even more powerful. And thinking of these things, the ambition of the high priest who was about to move, in his heart also made a quick decision at this moment. High priest Hatu gritted his teeth and said to himself, anyway, success or failure depends on one move, so why not fight here? As long as the remains can be obtained, it doesn't matter even if you lose a lot of vitality. Blood curse. A shout. Lines of blood suddenly flowed from the corners of Hatu's mouth, and even from his eye sockets. Strange blood-colored totems floated on the surface of the original dark skin. I saw that the high priest of the kingdom of Gus seemed to be inflated. Just a few breaths. From a stature of 1.6 meters, it grew to 3 meters. The vicissitudes of the face are old, like a person who knows the abyss. He also turned into a domineering, wild beastman, in the blink of an eye. Wow! The overall aura of High Priest Hatu suddenly rose steadily. The powerful air waves surged heavier and heavier. The bloody curse has a limited time, so it must be resolved quickly. High Priest Hatu, whose magic power in all aspects have been increased several times, whispered in his heart. While the abyssal GU Python launched a fierce attack, High Priest Hatu seized this opportunity and cast another spell. At #********. The abyss spell is like a devil whispering, echoing up and down the camp. I see. High Priest Hatu's eyes showed a gloomy light, and the staff in his hand hung in front of him. He opened his mouth wide and made a sound. Fazoo demon body, appear. A loud voice followed from his throat. This thunder-like sound shook the underground palace. From the back of High Priest Hatu, countless dots of light appeared in the void at some point, as if rendering the back into a starry sky. These gloomy lights gradually gathered together, and finally cut and chopped to outline a burly and tall phantom. This orc phantom comparable to the abyssal GU python. Along with his right arm slowly raised, the brilliance in his hand flashed. A wand appears. This high priest of Juhatu is a magical body made up of nearly 70% of the magic power in his body. Waving the wand, the magic power is released. Suddenly, abyssal formations appeared. They surrounded Viliva at 360 degrees without any dead angle. Given this once-in-a-thousand-year opportunity, you don't know how to hide your clumsiness and restrain your edge, but instead attack the kingdom swaggeringly. All I can say is that you think too highly of yourself. It's time to end. High Priest Hatu drank coldly. Wow, the power of countless abyssal elements was released from the guest formation. The moment this terrifying power was released, even the underground palace, which was reinforced with numerous restrictions, was crumbling, and cracks gradually appeared on the roof of the palace and the ground. High Priest Hatu stared at Viliva, who was surrounded by endless flames. Just getting ready to make the next move. He frowned. Cough, cough, cough. I couldn't help but put my right hand in front of my mouth, and the whole person began to cough violently. Sure enough, the faster the mana is consumed, the greater the negative impact of the blood curse. High Priest Hatu's eyes were gloomy and ugly. High-level secret techniques such as the Mad Blood Curse are exchanged for power at the cost of one's own vitality. Now he casts so many abyssal spells at once. The vitality is naturally being consumed rapidly. He can feel it clearly. In just a few short moments, he has already lost his lifespan of 100 years. But as long as you can get the remains and epic items, then this price is not worth mentioning at all. The voice just fell. High Priest, no, I should call you Hatu Garland now. Is this your best effort? I saw Vilivan's calm and indifferent voice coming from the area surrounded by countless magic circles. High Priest Hatu's pupils shrank suddenly when he heard the words. Lift your head and look to the source of the sound. He couldn't help but exclaimed, what? Roar. The deafening dragon chant, suddenly let it go. A golden light spread from it. The power of the brilliance directly shattered all the magic circles. High Priest Hatu looked at this scene in disbelief. Half empty. Viliva was suspended unscathed. His surroundings were shrouded in a golden shield. How is it possible? The attack just now, You were right. It is time to end, so as not to make my lord wait too long. With a cold dead silence in my ears, High Priest Hatu felt something. He jerked his head up. The top of the palace. A crack opened at some unknown time. Falling into the Dead Sea. Viliva whispered. From the dark cracks, thousands of fierce Dr. Devils suddenly flew out. The devils are ferocious, roaring crazily, densely packed. Looking from a distance, it looks like a black waterfall flowing down. The scene is extremely infiltrating. For this sudden attack, High Priest Hatu was stunned for a moment, then his expression changed drastically. He manipulated the burly magic beast body behind him. I want to raise my staff to defend. But the display of spells is far inferior to this sudden wave of devils. The devil is like a hungry wolf. At the moment of touching the body of magic, it began to frantically bite and destroy this body. In just a few breaths, the black crowd of demons devoured the upper body of the beast. This abyss level, where do so many devils come from? High Priest Hatu raised his arms high, and a purple shield in front of him barely resisted the seemingly endless group of demons. But his question was destined to be unanswered. PFF'd. After only holding on for more than 10 seconds, High Priest Hatu began to vomit blood. His eyes were instantly filled with despair, and he said palely, die. The backlash of this mad blood curse. Finally, in less than half a minute, the huge group of demons finally broke through the line of defense, engulfing the High Priest Hatu and the Dharma body behind him. The first priest of the kingdom of Gus is nothing more than that. Feeling that the breath of life of the High Priest of Hatu finally disappeared, Viliva smiled dismissively. He turned his head and slowly looked to the other side. Without the magic blessing continuously provided by the High Priest of Hatu, the power of the abyssal GU python has also been greatly weakened. The Hydra, which had been fighting with it, directly occupied the upper peak. Seeing that he was about to kill him, Viliva accepted the fire snake. He then summoned countless bone spurs to firmly fix the GU python on the ground. He is currently refining an undead creature, and this abyssal python is a good choice right now. Your hero unit, Viliva Taste, killed a level 30 Dark Goblin High Priest and gained 3,500 experience points. Solve it. Luo Shang smiled slightly when he saw this pop-up kill message. He's the only one left now. Look away. It fell on King Gus, who was still struggling to support him. The former #1 powerhouse of the Gus Kingdom is now in a state of distress, with scars all over his body. The powerful high-level armor on his body was full of cracks of different sizes. That domain suppression is getting stronger. King Gus held the blood slaughter axe in both hands, and glanced at the natural disaster on the sky, with a dignified expression. Then he looked around the fields. Sky and earth. Lava Gorefiend and Eternal Fallen Cavalry have completely surrounded him, and it is impossible to escape. The only way for King Gus to break through the predicament now is to wait for the High Priest to release the seal. Unleash the Abyss monster from other layers of the Abyss. But, why has there been no movement for so long? What are you doing, Hatugarant? King Gus gritted his teeth and growled in his heart. There is not much magic power left in his body now, and he can't even cast a few Abyss spells. Boom! The ground under his feet suddenly shook. And for this sudden thing, King Gus was not surprised at all. Instead, there was a burst of ecstasy. Because he knew the source of the vibration, it must be the release of the seal. Ha ha ha, if you dare to break into this king's land, then be prepared to pay a heavy price. King Gus, relieved all of a sudden, laughed wildly. This monster, which was sealed under the underground palace of his Gus Kingdom, is no match for the combined kings of his 6 Dark Goblin Kingdoms. Outsider, you are indeed powerful, but you overestimate yourself. His ferocious eyes fixed on Luo Shang, who was not far away. A few minutes ago, after discovering the outsider Luo Shang, he instantly understood that the powerful army of undead demons was all created by the other party. He didn't expect that there was such a strong man among those aliens who were so weak that he didn't pay attention to them. But no matter how powerful this outsider is right now, they will all be wiped out in front of this monster that is about to be born. Boom! On the sunken surface, a ray of light broke through the ground. King Gus, who saw this scene, mistook him for High Priest Hatu. Because he felt the breath of the High Priest from it. He was just about to open his mouth to speak. But that sudden gloomy light. Immediately, he flew towards the place of the outsider. This gave him a sense of foreboding. The dim light dissipated. Sure enough, he didn't expect it. Wearing a dragon law robe and surrounded by thousands of stars, Viliva half kneeled on the ground. Servant Viliva pays respects to the Supreme Lord of the Abyss. Talking. Under the robe, Viliva stretched out his golden right arm. He spread out his 5 fingers, and a horrible head appeared in his palm. The head seemed to have been eaten by wild wolves, most of the flesh and blood tissue was gone, and the dry blood was all over the grim skeleton. The head opened its mouth slightly, even though it was hard to see what it looked like before it was alive. However, one can vaguely feel the fear that was revealed during his lifetime from this distorted face. Big High Priest. Wah! King Gus naturally also saw that the bloody head in Viliva's hand was Hatu Garland. The face that used to be full of smiles is now so pale that it is covered with a layer of white powder. In addition to the expression of fear and disbelief in my heart. King Gus also heard it through Viliva's voice. Right now, the identity of the Abyss Mage wearing a golden robe is none other than Tast, one of the 5 great mages of the guards under his command. And after seeing each other, King Gus recalled what High Priest Hatu had said to him earlier. The guard knights under control have traces of undead spells on their bodies. His face was as cold as ice. Vilivar Taste, answer me. Are you doing all of this right now? The almost roar-like growl rose high. Naturally, what he was referring to was the fact that the guards of the kingdom of Gus suddenly went to war against other kingdoms. And Viliva, who heard the roar of King Gus, also got up slowly. He turned around. In those hollow and deep skull eyes, 2 wisps of flames were slowly burning, and there was a hint of sarcasm and disdainful smiles. Exactly. These 2 words fell, as if breaking the dead space. Traitor, this king wants you to pay for the lives of thousands of people who worked for the kingdom of Gus. The unstoppable anger seemed to be jetting out from the pupils of King Gus. He never thought that one day his kingdom would be destroyed by the betrayal of his subordinates. Supreme God of War Cavil, please grant me your strength. Undead fighting will. A deafening roar set off. Inside the stalwart body of King Gus, it seemed like a bomb had exploded. Strong waves of air gushed out one after another, like a torrential flood, endlessly. Watching King Gus's momentum rising steadily, Luo Shang's eyes were not only calm, but even lowered, showing a slight listening. He can see clearly. The price behind the ever-expanding and rising power and magic in the Gus Kingdom is the extremely rapid consumption of life. The opponent used such a move, it can be seen that the fuel is exhausted and there is no whole card. Leave him to me personally. Luo Shang stopped Viliva, who was about to make a move. The look in Viliva's eyes changed drastically. He quickly opened his mouth and said, "The great master of the abyss, such a lowly thing does not need your supreme body to do it yourself, slave." "No need." Viliva, who hadn't finished speaking, swallowed the rest of the words when he heard Luo Shang's words. He bowed his head deeply, knelt on the ground again. "The servant is talking too much. Please forgive me, the great master of the abyss. He is so stupid, actually trying to change the supreme will of the Lord of the Abyss. This is a crime that deserves death." "No problem." Luo Shang said something casually, and slowly raised his right hand. Those lava gore fiends and eternal fallen knights who surrounded King Gus followed orders and retreated. "Leave a wide open space between Luo Shang and King Gus. Outsider, this king recognizes the strength of your servants. But you don't think you can defeat this king by yourself alone. Even if this king's strength is not at its peak, it's not something you can deal with alone." After all, King Gus suddenly picked up the blood slaughter axe and slashed out. A shock wave strong enough to shatter several mountain peaks blatantly struck. A zigzag 1,000-meter crack opened in the ground immediately. Yes, seeing this blow, Luo Shang laughed back. The 3 pairs of fallen angel wings spread out. The power of corruption, like the night covering the earth, spread to the entire inner city in an instant. The shock wave that struck straight, finally turned into countless powders and scattered at a distance of 100 meters close to Luo Shang. This unexpected scene immediately made King Gus's expression stiff. This is his full blow. And these black wings. Fallen angel. When King Gus was hoarse. Qian Haojiao, King's Landing. A coercion that looked down on all living beings suddenly fell on the body of King Gus. Bang! Under the strong pressure, King Gus bent his waist. His face revealed an unprecedented shock. At the same time, a feeling of palpitation filled the depths of his soul. This natural fear originating from blood is too terrifying. King Gus tried hard to stand up straight, his eyes were straight ahead. He found that Luo Shang was no longer in his field of vision. "It seems that this is all your strength." An icy sound filled with chill came from behind. It made King Gus tremble violently. But before he turned his head, a cold light hit. PFF'd. King Gus's head rolled down, with bright red blood. "You killed a level 30 Dark Goblin King and gained 3,500 experience points." The sword of desire dissipated in his hand, and Lu Sheng looked at the corpse on the ground calmly. "The first one, the solution is complete. 5 left." Chapter 91. The southeast direction within the kingdom of Gus. 6. Six-winged fallen angel. How could there be such a level of abyssal creatures in this small layer of abyss? A dark goblin knight who had reached level 22 was trembling slightly with the sword he was holding in both hands and the armor he was wearing. The terrified eyes on his face looked at the graceful phantom high in the sky. "I see." The incomparably glamorous Lilith spreads her 6 wings high. She pinched another goblin knight's neck with her right hand. "The great red devil, the kingdom will make you pay." The intermittent voice just came out of his mouth. PFF'd. This body seemed to be stuffed with explosives, and suddenly burst open. The rain of blood and the remains of limbs poured down from midair, and the picture was extremely brutal. The filthy blood splashed half of Lilith's body, all of which were blocked by a layer of magic barrier on its surface. Lilith lowered her head slightly, looking down at the elite army of the Red Devil Kingdom, which originally numbered as high as 30,000. Now she has been killed by her alone, leaving less than half of it. Among them, there are only 6 of the 14 Dark Goblin experts above level 20 left. In an atmosphere of fear, suddenly there was a high-pitched cry. "What about the fallen angel? I don't believe her magical power is endless." The rear of this army. The goblin priest holding a staff, Valone Temamu has a face. as the only goblin priest who has reached the 20th level in this army. With his powerful mental power, he could feel that the opponent's previous moves consumed a lot of magic power. Even for races like fallen angels standing at the top of the abyss, the magic power in their bodies is limited after all. Now they still have the advantage in numbers. As long as they can slowly consume their magic power, there may not be no chance of winning. He then secretly transmitted his plan to several other goblin knights. Everyone looked at each other in blank dismay. In the current situation, we can only fight like this. All mages, use the red magic circle. CGAH. All warriors form 10 columns, forming a wall. Several voices fell one after another. The Red Devil's army quickly formed a formation. Although Lilith's previous crushing power had caused them a huge psychological shock. But as the most elite army in the Red Devil Kingdom, their will not be thwarted so easily. All fighters are juxtaposed together. They raised the large and heavy silver shields in their hands and placed them on top of their heads. Accompanied by the infusion of magic power into the shield surface, a strong silver glow was released. A silver energy wall covering the 10,000-meter land below appeared under Lilith's eyes. Behind the energy wall, all the goblin mages raised their staffs and chanted abyss spells. Wow! Scarlet blood shot up into the sky. 6 crimson-red magic circles appeared at the same time. Before Lilith could make a move, the void behind was suddenly split open, a narrow space gap. A black shadow jumped out of the gap. Sombra is exactly one of the dark goblin knights. Cracking blood slash. Brock was slender, holding a dagger lingering with black evil energy in both hands, and stabbed towards Lilith's head. As one of the 26 knights of the Red Devil Kingdom, the Shadow Knight is different from other goblin knights. He is best at removing obstacles and performing backstabs. This cracking blood slash is his most powerful high-level skill, which can instantly come to the back of the target unit. Although the frontal strength of this fallen angel is terrifyingly strong, the defensive power on the back is very likely to be the breakthrough point. Hiss! The dagger sliced through the air, and it was about to stab. Behind Lilith's soft and beautiful back, a purple ferocious vertical pupil suddenly appeared in the void. The moment Broker confronted the vertical pupil's gaze, an unprecedented sense of fear surged into my heart instantly. At the same time, the blood and even the bones flowing in his body froze at this moment. Along with all of this, his own body was also frozen in midair. What the hell? Brock's face was pale, and his light noticed that the airflow around him had also stopped visibly. It was as if everything had come to a standstill. Just when the Shadow Knight was trying to move, there was a stabbing pain in his abdomen that penetrated into the bone marrow. Eyes move. The armor under his body was pierced by a slender black thorn. Blood leaked continuously from the wound. My power. Brock's pupils shrank. The skin on the backs of his hands and even his whole body is aging at an extremely fast rate. He could sense that the evil thorn piercing through him was crazily plundering everything in his body. Bow of Rage. On the left side is an arrow wrapped in crimson streamer, dragging the lightning and flint to shoot. The power is frightening. Lilith smiled dismissively. The slender right arm was raised slightly. A magic wall completely condensed by the essence of magic power appeared. Block this arrow easily. Brock. Seeing this, the dark goblin knight holding his bow gritted his teeth and let out a loud roar. Just about to rush up. But it was stopped by another knight. He can't live. Trapping her now is the best solution. Rear. Valant waved his arms and shouted, "It's now." All I saw were the 6 red magic circles floating in the air. The 6 scarlet blood circles moved towards Lilith's surroundings. Form a hexagonal position. Attack with all your might. Hold nothing back. Valant continued to shout. A scarlet light shot out from the center of the 6 magic circles. The 6 lights gathered tens of meters above Lilith's head and unfolded into a scarlet magic circle again. Countless kinds of abyssal spells followed one after another in the magic circle, and their power was comparable to a special level large-scale abyssal spell. The greedy thorn that devoured Broker's entire life and soul returned to the hilt of the Sword of Greed. Lilith looked up at the colorful galaxy-like picture in the sky above. The Lord's side should have ended, and I have to speed up on my side. Then let's untie it a little bit. The Sword of Greed in Lilith's hand. The blood-red sword body is now releasing countless blood-red lights. The blood glow is extremely strange. Valente and the other goblins just stared at it. Unexpectedly, There was a chill in the body and mind involuntarily, as if the body was frozen. A trace of ominous premonition could not help appearing in Valente's mind. With a bad expression on his face, he whispered, "This kind of thing is impossible. Seraphim is indeed extremely powerful, but no matter what, her level is only 24. Impossible, unscathed. And all of this seems to be heading in the direction that Valente least wants to believe." "Sword of greed devour," Lilith whispered. The space on the tip of the sword twisted visible to the naked eye, and then formed a huge, vortex spiral. Like the eye of a hurricane. All the attacks that fell from the red magic circle were swallowed into this vortex hole. "What kind of spell is this?" a knight exclaimed. All the attacks that everyone exerted with all their strength were turned into nothing. "Don't stop, keep attacking. On one side, Valent, because of. Now they have no way to retreat, and the only chance of survival is to fight to the death." He didn't believe that the fallen angel's spell can be swallowed forever. The spell must have a capped vertex. Hearing the voice of the priest, the goblin knights and mages also reacted and continued to cast spells. Lilith's beautiful and seductive face is full of sneers. "Return to the eternity of the abyss, you inferior fools." The thorns entwined on the hilt of the sword flowed rapidly and became bigger, as fast as tiny. Sweeping towards the four directions. Boom! The thorns slammed into the barrier wall formed by the red magic circle. The terrifying and tyrannical power directly caused the wall to collapse together with this abyssal circle that gathered the power of thousands of people. It was also at the moment when the red magic circle was shattered. The thorns on the hilt of the greedy sword suddenly bloomed like flowers, extending towards the red devil's army at the speed of thunder. Boom! The silver energy wall resists the attack of the thorns. Watching the wall constantly vibrate and crumbling. A goblin knight standing in the center of the army, carrying a 4-meter gold shield in both hands, shouted, "Block it! Block it all! It's a pity that words can't add a little power to anyone." The energy wall is formed by magic power. The stronger the power of the greedy thorn, the more terrifying the magic power consumed by the energy wall. "I can't take it anymore." A half-kneeling goblin warrior was extremely pale, panting heavily. In the end, he didn't even have the strength to lift the shield, and he collapsed directly to the ground. His magic had completely dried up. And there are more and more scenes like this. As the supply of magic power decreases, the energy wall vibrates more violently. Until it completely collapses. What? That's not good. Each greedy thorn is like a skewer, and the goblins are opened one by one. Then continue to plunder their lives and souls. The elite army of the Red Devil Kingdom suddenly became a mess in the face of absolute power. Watching goblins continue to be slaughtered. A goblin knight jumped up. His face was full of anger, and he waved a magic knife burning with white flames in his hand. "Chop towards the greedy thorn closest to you." Clang. Never heard. When the magic knife hits the thorns, it is like a wooden stick hitting the iron sheet. Not only did it not have the slightest effect, but on the contrary, his arms were numb from the shock. What about that move? The Sword Knight of the Red Devil Kingdom was about to attack again. But the next moment, Sack's pupils narrowed, and he couldn't help but exclaimed, "What?" On the surface of the greedy thorn he attacked, countless pairs of demonic eyes suddenly opened. The thorns seemed to come to life suddenly. "Eat." A scalp-numbing and frightening raving came from a devil's eye, clearly echoing in Sack's mind. In an instant, a force of death enveloped Sack's whole body. His face was as pale as paper, because he felt the scythe of death, which was very close to him. "You must retreat, otherwise you will definitely die." This is his only thought now. However, he was about to step back. But he found that the movements of his limbs were extremely slow, as if the time around him had been deliberately slowed down to an extreme. "It's because of that voice just now." Sack guessed the reason, and said hoarsely in his heart. In addition, he found that the scythe of death had waved towards him. From under his feet, the body is blurring a little bit. It turned into a little gray light spot the size of a firefly. After Sack's whole body was blurred, those gray spots were all sucked into the pupil of a demon eye. About a few minutes, the army was slaughtered until only a few hundred people remained. As for the powerhouses above level 20, only the Walloons are left. In the past, he was rated as the second strongest warlock in the Red Devil Kingdom under the High Priest Yusa in the kingdom. Now slumped on the ground, looking in fear at the dancing greedy thorns above. Stuttering. The power of the demon god. No, how is this possible? The words fell. PFF'd. A thorn directly pierced his skull. After solving everyone in this elite army, Lilith's right index finger was lightly pressed against her plump lips. Looking down at the mountain of corpses and sea of blood below, she said calmly, the first level of the abyss is still too weak. For her, besides being boring, the only gain in this battle is to reach level 25. Congratulations on your upgrade to level 29. It's level 29, and it's one level away from reaching 30. The kill message didn't pop up anymore, it seems that Lilith has already solved it. Looking at the kill information table in the lower right corner, Shang couldn't help admiring. The legendary level is the legendary level, it's really terrifying. Lilith is only at level 24, no, it is now level 25. One person can destroy 30,000 elite troops of the Red Devil Kingdom, plus a dozen or so goblin knights in their 20s, it's like a hack. I really look forward to what kind of storm Lilith will experience when she breaks through to level 100 in the future. He turned around, eyes swept to the east. This elite army has been wiped out, and the Red Devil Kingdom's vitality has been seriously injured, and it will be the next target. As the kingdom with the strongest overall strength among the 6 Dark Goblin Kingdoms. Now because they have to deal with 5 kingdoms at the same time, there are not many troops left in the kingdom. The only thing worth seeing are the 2 level 30 Abyssal Creature 3. Watching the army march towards the Red Devil Kingdom. Standing in midair, Shang casually opened the Abyss channel. The information in the channel kept flickering, and it can be seen that the number of online speakers has increased by more than half than usual. As for the reason, it was naturally the factor of the civil war among the 6 Dark Goblin Kingdoms. Looking at this posture, the 6 kingdoms seemed to be ready to fight to the death. Originally there was a cavalry army from the Red Devil Kingdom near me searching for traces of the reincarnated people. They almost found my territory here, but luckily because of internal fighting at the critical moment, the cavalry army returned the same way, otherwise this time I'm afraid I'm really going to be cold. It's Num, who exactly took the 4th level mission. If he didn't take it alone, the strong people from all sides of our alliance plus other people, when they are almost dead, you can rely on this great opportunity to completely wipe them out and complete the fall. What the upstairs said makes sense. Which guy did it? I'll give you the 2 people upstairs who died laughing. No matter which kingdom of the 6 Dark Goblin Kingdoms is the last one, it's not something we little shrimps can deal with now. The existence of the 30th level kills us, just like it's as simple as trampling a group of ants to death, don't give away their heads. Indeed, now the Eternal Night Alliance has been severely injured by the Red Devil Kingdom, and the leader Lin Yi is even on the run. All the alliances are united, and they have no effect at all. There is too much difference in strength. Shang rode to the bottom. Big news. Big news. The kingdom of Gus seems to be the first kingdom to be wiped out. Is the attack speed of the Red Devil Kingdom so fast? Didn't someone say that the army just entered the border? What's the situation? Can anyone tell me what's going on? Just an hour ago, Gus Kingdom was suddenly attacked by an army of undead, and now that army has directly attacked the inner city. Undead army. Hey, I took a picture of the scene before. Shang opened the screenshot of the scene. The picture in the picture is not so much the scene, but rather a rough picture taken from a very far away place. See picture only. The distance on the vast land. The sky was dark, black holes emerged, and under the terrifying natural disaster of the undead, there was a vast army of skeletons and blood demons. Even though the picture is a little blurry, I can vaguely feel a strong palpitation. When did there still exist such a terrifying army of undead on the border of the inner domain? Opening square bracket ... closing square bracket. Heart palpitations and fearful words were all heard in the channel. After all, that picture is very oppressive. After a few glances, Shang put away the system panel. His eyes were calm. Time does not wait for me, we have to make a quick decision. In the current layer of the abyss, the most powerful ones are the abyss lords who occupy the core of the inner domain. Races at the first level of the abyss, such as the Dark Goblin Kingdom, are all dependent on the lords of the various parties to survive. Now those lords are constantly fighting for a certain treasure. No time to care about other things at all. But according to Viliva, The Abyss Lord behind the Red Devil Kingdom behaved very strangely. He did not participate in the battle for the treasure, but stayed out of it. This is also the point that Luo Shang dreads the most in this battle. After all, the level of each Abyss Lord has reached at least level 40, and there are as many vassal kingdoms as the Dark Goblin Kingdom under his command. My current strength is still far behind if I want to head with an Abyss Lord. So that's why he had to make a quick decision. Red Devil Kingdom. Report to your majesty, the elite army attacking the kingdom of Gus has been wiped out. When High Priest USA spoke, his tone was full of struggle. After all, this result, even for the speaker, is hard to believe. A full 30,000 elite army, plus more than a dozen knights above level 20, the entire army was wiped out before even reaching the inner city. If he hadn't personally felt that their breath of life had all disappeared, he would have thought that the soldier who delivered the information was telling him a story. Who is it? The two words were as heavy as Mount High, and an invisible pressure directly made Wu Yu, who was originally kneeling behind the high priest, be silent and short of breath. It was as uncomfortable as being pressed by several big stones on the chest. But suffering is suffering. Wu Yu took a deep breath in his heart, hiss. I haven't seen you for more than a month, and the level of His Majesty the Red Demon King has been raised by 2 levels. This is too scary. Sure enough, he was right about this thigh. Those idiots in the Abyss Channel are still clamoring to crusade against this terrifying existence in front of them. It's a dream. The Red Devil stood up. With dark eyes, he said in a low voice, is it because King Gus has hidden cards that this king doesn't know about? High Priest USA shook his head and said solemnly, it wasn't the kingdom of Gus who did it. The former frowned. According to the news from the deceased Valente, the destroyer is a fallen angel. Fallen angels. Why does this race that only exists at the upper level of the abyss come to the first level of the small abyss? The gloomy anger on the Red Devil's face vanished instantly, revealing unbelievable horror. After all, in his impression, demons like fallen angels should not appear here at all. Before the Red Devil could think about it, High Priest USA expresses his views in table. Your Majesty, does your Majesty think that the fallen angel may be related to the outsider? Hearing this, the Red Demon King rolled his eyes. The High Priest wants to say that this fallen angel might have been summoned by other outsiders. High Priest USA bowed his head lightly. The Red Devil King's gaze also fell on Wu Yu's body. Wu Yu suddenly felt cold all over his body. He naturally listened to what the Red Devil King said word for word. But now he is racking his brains, and he can't think of any reincarnated person in the Abyss Channel who can summon the fallen angel. And this is a fallen angel who can destroy an elite army of 30,000, this level is definitely above level 30. This kind of thing, even the Holy Dragon who sees the beginning and the end is completely impossible to do. Maid, how could any of the many reincarnations in the Abyss be able to summon such a monster? Wu Yu secretly complained in his heart. But he didn't dare to give an absolute answer to the Red Devil King, nor did he dare to deceive him in any way. He thought for a while, then tremblingly said, Your Majesty, among all the powerful reincarnations known to this servant, there is no one who can summon you, the fallen angel. HMPH. If you don't know, then shut up. The Red Devil King, who was already in an extremely unhappy mood, shouted coldly when he saw that he could not tell any useful information. Wu Yu was so frightened that his body trembled violently, and he quickly closed his mouth. He kowtowed a few times, not even daring to catch his breath. With the temperament of His Majesty the Red Devil, if he said a word more, his life would definitely be lost. The Red Devil looked at the High Priest again, and he said, if you can kill 30,000 elite troops, plus a dozen goblin knights, the level of that fallen angel is at least 30, and it is even possible higher. Those outsiders' methods are weird and unpredictable, but summoning such a fallen angel with such a high level is outrageous. According to the information Wu Yu told him before, the outsider who can summon demons is the most powerful among all the outsiders in the Abyss. But it was such a powerful outsider who was completely vulnerable to his own cavalry and could only keep fleeing. So it was hard for him to believe it. Among those ants and aliens, there are demons who are powerful enough to summon fallen angels. Hearing the Red Devil's words, High Priest USA obviously paused. After all, he also has some doubts in his heart. It is indeed a fantasy that a mere outsider can summon such a high-level demon clan. How about the armies of the other 4 countries, how is the battle going? The Red Devil turned his head and said, the armies of Yi Kingdom and Scarlet Heart Kingdom are not our opponents at all, they have been directly attacked to the gate of the inner city. As for the Kingdom of Dark Gold and the Kingdom of Kings, they have a lot of cards in their cards, and it is not optimistic to temporarily fix the battle line on the outer border wall. The Red Devil King's face was a bit ferocious, and he clenched his fists. His original plan was to gather most of his strength first and swallow the Kingdom of Gus, which was closest to him, in one go. After using it to restore vitality, launch a fierce attack on the other 4 countries. Unexpectedly, such a big change would occur at the critical moment when the plan was about to be completed. No, we have to change our strategy. He covered his forehead with his right hand and thought to himself. This plan, which has been prepared for so many years, will never allow failure. Your Majesty, I have important reports to report. A burly orc in silver armor walked in from outside the hall. He knelt down on one knee, very respectful. What's the matter? To the west of the border of the kingdom, a large area of demons have been found attacking. Demon. The Red Devil's expression suddenly changed. Well, in addition to demons, there are also many monsters that seem to be undead creatures, and there are a lot of them. Undead creatures, demons. The Red Devil is extremely ugly. Isn't that outsider who can summon demons being hunted down by his subordinates? What is going on with these demons now? Your Majesty, why don't you ask your subordinates to find out? Then leave it to the High Priest. First the fallen angels, and now a large army of demons and undead suddenly appeared, which interrupted all his thoughts. The fleeting moment of High Priest USA. The western wall of the kingdom. Standing here in the Red Devil army, looking at the lava gorfiend occupying the sky not far away, the lotus body is trembling. I can't be mistaken, this seems to be a legendary demon. Maid, this is the devil. What's going on here? How come so many demons appear here? What are you doing in a daze? Why don't you quickly open the magic barrier? A commander roared. Yes, the countless abyssal runes carved on the surface of the city wall shone with a dark halo at this moment. Clatter. A dark green magic barrier rises high from the boundary of the wall. Not far away. Follow the great motto of the Lord of the Abyss, make a quick decision, and get rid of these inferior scum. A lava gore fiend grinned, overlooking the barrier. I saw dozens of lava gore fiends unleashing the blaze demon cannon together. A huge number of flame formations directly occupied half of the sky. Terrible demon power is brewing. Gulu. This ghost barrier was personally arranged by the High Priest Yusa for several years, and it can block the full blow of a strong person of level 30 or higher. Blocking these attacks shouldn't be a problem. Even so, but the commander couldn't help swallowing a mouthful of water. For some reason, when he saw the countless flame formations in the sky, he always had an ominous premonition. Moments passed. The commander found out that his premonition was indeed correct. Dozens of extremely hot lava beams seemed to be able to penetrate the abyss in the sky, directly tearing open the dark midair. Boom! The demonic lava that melted everything slammed into the ghost barrier. The deafening sound spread almost 10,000 meters around. The mountains, forests and vegetation were all razed to the ground at the moment when the force collided and turned into a sea of lava. Not good. All soldiers retreat quickly. Seeing the commander in a bad situation, he quickly waved his arms and shouted. But no matter how quickly he reacted, it would be too late. Crack. When the barrier was broken, countless Balrog cannons appeared, like the baptism of the god of fire to all things in the world. From the 10,000-meter city wall to the north, to the military camps within the border, all were melted down. The 5,000 goblin warriors couldn't dodge such a large-scale attack, and they were all killed. The commander-in-chief with only half of his body left was still dying, and he looked up at the sky. The word fear filled a pair of eyes. Strange. Boom. A black shadow crushed the head. I saw a lava gorfiend flying down. He looked at the distant inner city of the Red Devils, and let out a piercing devilish laugh. Let's kill to your heart's content, for the great Lord of the Abyss. Kill. I will turn all the creatures on this land into ashes. For the Lord of the Abyss. Countless gore fiends crossed the border and left through the air. It's like an apocalyptic scene. The ghost barrier was broken so easily, how could it be? High Priest USA appeared in midair, looking at the fragmented barrier in the distance, and the blood demons that are constantly approaching. His face was full of seriousness. And this familiar aura is absolutely unmistakable. These demons belong to the same category as the demons that killed Gatcher and others before. That despicable outsider, it seems that there are still many things that have not been clarified. High Priest USA said coldly. He was referring to Wu Yu, of course. Earlier, Wu Yu pointed out that the leader of the Evernight Alliance was the culprit who summoned demons to kill Gatcher and others. But after a month and a half, he found that the level of demons summoned by the Lord was too low. Logically speaking, it is not enough to kill Gatcher and others. So he has always suspected that killing Gatcher and other knights may be from other worlds. Now it seems that his guess is obviously correct. But, among those outsiders who are like ants, there is someone who can summon such a large number of Median demons. This is really. High Priest USA couldn't believe that this was something outsiders could do. He raised his head and narrowed his eyes. The top priority is to prevent these demons from entering the inner city. These demons are too numerous to use this spell. High Priest USA raised his staff and chanted. A rose-blue magic circle with a diameter of 1,000 meters under the feet burst into an uproar. Frostthorn sleeping in this barren land, follow my call and wake up. After the mantra is chanted, High Priest USA flew directly into the air. He waved the staff, and pointed the gem engraved on the top to the magic circle below. Om. In the beautiful and moving gemstone, a brilliant light shot out. The halo injected straight into the center of the magic circle. Crack. The blue light emanating from the magic circle became extremely bright and dazzling, and it originally covered a range of 1,000 meters, but expanded to 5 kilometers again. Come on, let me show you my strongest summoning technique. Yusa looked extremely moved and roared. Boom. The ground under the magic circle shattered. Immediately afterwards, a huge monster appeared from it. This dragon with wings, Angtian let out a roar that shook the sky. The spread of its wings and its figure that covers the sky and the sun all show its unique dragon power. Yusa looked at the stalwart body of the Frostceratops, which was more than 90 meters high, with a smile on his face. Although the Frostthorn is not a pure abyssal dragon, it can be regarded as a middle-ranked dragon among the abyssal dragons. Although the level of this frost-horned dragon is only 26th level, its strength is already comparable to that of around 30th level. The sum of him and the horns is equivalent to 2 level 30s. Are you afraid that you can't stop these demons who are only level 20? The Frostthorn flew up. The ice-blue dragon scales all over the body exuded beams of faint blue light. Like a cold bright moon rising from the earth. The Ceratopsian opened its mouth, and magic appeared in front of the mouth. Shish, a terrifying breath of icy cold, like a long rainbow penetrating the sun, shot directly towards the vast Gorefiend in front. Finally something a little more interesting. A lava Gorefiend noticed the dazzling light and grinned wildly. The other Gorefiends also let out bursts of laughter. It seems that this dragon's breath, which is enough to annihilate ordinary 30th level creatures, is nothing to them. Crimson Molten Territory. The lava Gorefiends used this rare spell one after another. Below, the vast land began to shake. Hot lava suddenly spewed out from the cracks in the cracks on the ground. The lava instantly turned everything within 10,000 meters into a lava purgatory. Boom boom boom. Hundreds of lava columns erupted from the ground, like a volcanic eruption, which is extremely spectacular. A group of lava Gorefiends raised their hands high. Those sprayed molten slurries were easily manipulated like a stream of water. The molten lava that filled the sky turned the pitch-black sky into a fiery cloud Brahma. The lava eventually turned into a round shield. Shining like a sun, the blazing halo illuminates the abyss below. Boom! The dragon's breath from the frost-horned dragon collided with the molten shield, sparking a fierce confrontation between ice and fire. It was blocked so easily. High Priest USA narrowed his eyes. He looked solemnly at the lava purgatory not far away, which was a rare domain spell. Quote, the strength of these demons is really not simple, no wonder they were able to kill Gatcher and other kingdom powerhouses one after another. If these murderous monsters were allowed to rush into the inner city, the consequences would be unimaginable. I must stop them here, at any cost. High Priest USA said to himself. He had an idea. Teleport directly to the head of the Frostthorn. He waved the staff in his hand. The end of the staff threw heavily on the dragon scale, blessing of blood. Bloody radiance descended on the body of the frost ceratops. The horned dragon raised its head and let out another high-pitched roar. This time the roar was obviously several times stronger than before. Watching the overall aura of the horned dragon under its feet began to rise steadily. High Priest USA raised his staff. Ma Lihao pointed at the lava gorefiend in front of him. Destroy them. Under the blessing, the level was briefly raised to the 30th level frost horned dragon. The strength has already improved by leaps and bounds. The frost ceratosaurus quickly plundered towards the gorefiend. It's booming. A column of lava shot out from the ground, aiming directly at the frost ceratops in the sky. An ice shield rose around the horned dragon, enveloping it. Is that the high priest of the Red Devil Kingdom? His strength is pretty good, but he wouldn't think that the only opponent he has is the lava gorefiend. Luo Shang watched the battle between the two sides, and smiled. The Supreme Master of the Abyss, do you need a servant to help? Viliva beside him lowered his head and whispered softly. His every word is full of reverence for Luo Shang. No, you can go directly to the inner city. Follow orders. After Viliva left, Luo Shang's sight fell on USA High Priest and the Gorefiend Legion again. After killing him, the only one in the Red Devil Kingdom that needs to be feared is the Red Devil King. Time is tight these days and everything needs to be expedited. He whispered. His current idea is to destroy the 6 Dark Goblin Kingdoms within 2 days. The Frostthorn raised its right paw, which was as towering as a continuous mountain range. One shot. Although the molten shield was directly broken, it also shook violently. Obviously unable to support a few times. Looking at all this, High Priest Yusa sneered, HMPH, so what about middle-level demons? The level is only 20, no matter how many there are, they are not the enemy of this priest. Gia, is it? A lava gorefiend showed a wicked smile like a clown. Death punishment. A cold and bone-chilling voice suddenly echoed in the mind of High Priest USA. He looked up suddenly. What came into sight was a huge black plus 873-word sword suspended in the sky above him. The sword was like a shaky sword of Damocles, suddenly falling straight down. It's ridiculous that an ordinary method of undead wants to sneak attack on me. High Priest USA looked at the cross sword with disdain on his face. The ice shield condensed around the Frostthorn dragon is formed by the fusion of the horned dragon's own magic power and even the magic power in its own body. Even the full blow of His Majesty the Red Devil King couldn't break through. This sword, crack, the crisp crackling sound was particularly ear-piercing at this moment. This also made High Priest USA widen his eyes. Broken. High Priest USA froze for a few seconds. When he came back to his senses, his expression changed drastically, and he said to the horned dragon Imperial Envoy under his feet, hide. Get out of the way. But the speed at which the sword fell, the horned dragon obviously had no time to dodge. High Priest Ursa raised his staff. A gorgeous magic light that gathers 3 elements shoots out from the gemstone. The magic light collided with the cross sword, and endless waves erupted. No, there is something wrong with this sword. Seeing the magic light emitted quickly dissipate. The High Priest USA gritted his teeth and teleported directly into the air thousands of meters away. Without the resistance of the magic light, the cross sword directly landed on the horned dragon's head. The indestructible dragon scales are as weak as paper in front of the sharp sword tip. The sword pierced fiercely into the horned dragon, causing countless blood to spurt out. Naturally, the horned dragon could clearly feel the sting like 1,000 arrows piercing through the heart. The dragon first raised his head and let out an angry growl. Then the huge dragon body began to fall downwards. This sword is like piercing the horned dragon's heart, directly causing its original magic power to flow into confusion. Difficult to even fly, but the fall of the ceratopsia does not mean the end. In the sea of lava that has turned into purgatory below, thousands of molten pillars spewed out. The molten pillar shot straight into the sky, and all landed on the body of the ceratopsian, which was difficult to defend. Frostthorn. High Priest USA turned pale and roared. He just realized that the cross sword can break through all defensive spells below the rare level, so for his own life, he can only choose to avoid it. A undead thing with only level 20 can explode with such terrifying power. Is it because of the military formation? He turned his head and looked at a huge cavalry army to the south. It is the eternal fallen Dark Knight. All his eyes were focused on the leading Dark Rider. The Supreme Lord of the Abyss has an ABEC order to kill all those who stand in the way. Today is the time for you and the lowly species to die. The Eternal Fallen Knight raised the magic sword in his hand. And the rows of Eternal Fallen Riders behind him also raised their sharp swords. Follow the order of the Lord of the Abyss, kill. The loud cry of the undead went straight into the sky. Wisps of black gas drifted out from the tips of the sharp swords in the hands of dozens of Dark Riders. The black gas all drifted towards the body of the leading Dark Rider. Dark Demon Sword Kill. A crescent-like black sword chi strikes out. A sword slashed in the direction of High Priest USA. High Priest USA was shocked. This force suddenly soared to the level of 31 and 2 levels, no way. You have to avoid it. He waved his staff and was about to cast a spell. Shish! Chains of lava flew out of the sea of lava below. The chains were as fast as thunder. Taking advantage of the moment when the High Priest was not paying attention, they directly restrained the limbs. Forget that I'm still in that demon's domain. Seeing the sword energy approaching, High Priest Yusa gritted his teeth and said, "We can only use the surrogate curse." He closed his eyes, and quickly chanted a string of incantations that activated the magic puppet. But after the mantra is finished, the High Priest USA was horrified to find that the puppet hadn't been activated. Could it be that the curse puppet was? The sword chi hit the body of the High Priest, cutting him in half. Your unit, Eternal Fallen Dark Cavalry, killed a level 30 Dark Goblin High Priest, and gained 3,500 experience points. The skill of Immortal Army Soul can allow all Eternal Fallen Knights to transfer their power to one person, allowing them to gain a lot of power in a short period of time. I thought that this skill could increase its strength by a few levels at most. I didn't expect to kill that Goblin High Priest with a single sword. Luo Shang applauded. Your arms are being collected. It is detected that the current environment is suitable for using talents, and Supreme Favor is being used. Collection completed. You have obtained the Advanced Skill Book, Summoning the Horned Dragon, *1 Advanced 9th Level Item, the High Priest Skull 3 Advanced 2nd Level Item, the High Priest Staff 1 Advanced 3rd Level Item, and Spiritual Soul Beads 3 Advanced Level 1 Item, Intermediate Abyssal Soul 2, Intermediate Spar. Could it be that the priest summoned the Horned Dragon in this skill book? Luo Shang raised his eyebrows. Click to view the skill book. Summoning Horned Dragon, Advanced Skill Book. Level, Advanced 9th Level. Introduction. The Dark Goblin High Priest who fell in the Red Devil Kingdom can summon a powerful Frost-Horned Dragon. After use, you will learn this skill directly. A high-level 9th level summoning skill book. Yes, this drop is much richer than King Gus's. After Luo Sheng said, without any hesitation, learn this skill book directly. He was very interested just now when he saw High Priest USA performing this summoning technique. You are learning the Advanced Skill Book Horned Dragon Summoning. Congratulations on successfully learning this skill. Luo Sheng opens the personal panel, the Horned Dragon Summoning on the skill line. The skill book can only see a general idea, but cannot see the specific description of the skill. To see the specific information, you must learn the skills and check it out. Skill, Horned Dragon Summoning. Level, Advanced 9th Level. Introduction. After the skill is cast, a Frost-Horned Dragon will be summoned. Note. The strength of the summoned Frost-Horned Dragon is linked to its own level. The length of existence of Frost Ceratosaurus is connected with its own magic power. The summoned Horned Dragon is linked to its own level, so if my level reaches 40 or 50 levels, then the summoned Frost-Horned Dragon will also be able to reach this level of strength. Luo Sheng was thoughtful. If it is as I imagined, the effect of this high-level skill can be compared to ordinary rare-level skills. His gaze moved to the inner city of the Red Devil Kingdom. The corner of his mouth hooked. Let's use it to test the strength of this new skill. At the same time, in the inner city of the Red Devil Kingdom, in the temple of the High Priest Zu, the breath of life is cut off, it seems to have died. 2 soul fire lamps burn in the dark room. Under the faint halo, a graceful and glamorous figure stood quietly. Lilith's purple eyes glowed with a smile as she looked at a puppet body that was cut in half by her in front of her. This puppet body is exactly what the High Priest USA had said earlier, the curse puppet for death. Once the puppet is broken, it cannot grant the binder immunity to death one more time. The Scarlet Devil King should be the only abyssal creature that has reached level 30 or above in this kingdom. Lilith turned around. The line of sight in the eyes penetrated the temple wall and shot directly at a magnificent royal palace that was close at hand. The Red Devil Palace at this moment. The vibration continued. The Red Devil King raised his head and screamed, "Who is it? Who is it that dares to kill me, the High Priest of the Red Devil Kingdom?" From under the burly and strong body, the terrifying aura is released with the howling wind. The ground beneath the feet has been completely shattered and dented. The tyrannical force seemed to turn the palace into ruins at any moment. "Your Majesty, calm down. Your Majesty, calm down." All the night priests of the kingdom knelt down and said in a horrified tone, "I'm stupid. I knew I would have retired earlier. Wu Yu, am I going to die here today?" Wu Yu, who was the weakest in the palace, had his limbs completely lying on the sunken ground. His eyes rolled white, and white foam kept spitting out from his mouth. This terrible coercion seemed to crush his internal organs. 10 seconds later, the coercion receded like a tide. Everyone raised their heads tremblingly, looking at the extremely angry His Majesty. The blood-red knight armor of the Red Devil King still reflects the bright red blood light now. Hanging like a blood moon. "Bring the treasure that the Lord bestowed." The thick and cold voice of murderous intent resounded in everyone's minds. Instantly, everyone had a look of horror on their faces. They all knew what the treasure His Majesty was talking about was. This is the biggest hole card of the Red Devil Kingdom, and it is also the reason why the Red Devil Kingdom dares to attack the 5 countries at the same time. I didn't expect His Majesty to use it so soon. Now it seems that it is really used. Reft stood up slightly, with a low and hoarse voice. This subordinate obeys the order. After a while, Reft returned to the palace. With both hands, he presented a weapon wrapped in heavy black cloth. The Red Devil's mind moved slightly, and the weapon wrapped in black cloth flew to his palm. "I don't want to use this treasure so quickly. After all, I only have 2 chances to use it. Since you want to die so much, I will personally give you a ride." Under the armor, the almost roaring voice of the Red Devil came out. He had planned for this day for so long. Now everything is ruined. The anger in his heart has reached an unprecedented peak. "Everyone follow me out to fight." Yes, after a while, outside the walls of the inner city, the night priests of the entire kingdom gather here. "Wu Yu, what happened just now? I seem to have heard His Majesty's roar just now." Lei Wanjin sent a message to Wu Yu, who was beside him with a disheveled face, using the system. "That's right, Brother Ang, what's the situation now? Could it be that other Goblin Kingdom troops are attacking?" Looking at the situation in front of him, Chen Shui couldn't help swallowing a mouthful of foam. If he remembered correctly, with the strength of the Red Devil Kingdom, this war should be able to easily win the other 5 Dark Goblin Kingdoms. What is the situation now? How come it looks like a war at any time? And their 2 reincarnations, like Wu Yu, surrendered to the Red Devil Kingdom early, swallowed the potion, and became the 3rd of the Dark Goblin Lin Yi clan. The current situation of the Red Devil Kingdom is closely related to them. Gulu. Wu Yu swallowed a mouthful of water. Using the system to reply. "Just now the High Priest Yusa passed away." "Mistgrass, High Priest Yusa is dead." Chen Shui's eyes widened, and she almost cried out in surprise. The High Priest is a strong man of level 30, and he fell down. Could it be done by another Goblin Kingdom? Lei Wanjin was dumbfounded. The High Priest Yusa, who is under 1 person and above 10,000 people, has naturally seen it with their own eyes. The introduction of that powerful monster, even now, they feel shivering when they think about it. "I didn't expect that such a strong man would die suddenly." Wu Yu shook his head and continued to speak with the system. "It wasn't done by other Dark Goblin Kingdoms. The one who killed the High Priest Nyusa is suspected to be an army of demons that suddenly appeared from the west." Army of demons. The remaining 2 looked at each other. Can see the intense fear in each other's eyes. Abyssal creatures like demons, shouldn't they be in the middle and upper levels of the abyss? How would it appear here? The army of demons, then can the Red Devil Kingdom really resist it? How about we find a chance to sneak away? Chen Shui's lips were a little dry. The reason why he chose to betray the Qianyu alliance was naturally to survive. If the Crimson Devil Kingdom was on the verge of collapse, he would do the same and escape from here. Ridiculous. Have you forgotten that there is a restriction planted by the Red Devil Kingdom in our body? Once discovered, it will be annihilated, and there will be no bones left. Hearing Chen Shui's unrealistic idea, Lei Wanjin couldn't help ridiculing. The lives of the three of them are now completely in the prison of the Red Demon King. If you act rashly, you will only end up with the word, death. Great Your Majesty, all magic circles in the city have been activated. A priest knelt on one knee behind the Scarlet Devil. The scarlet eyes under the Scarlet Devil King's helmet looked at the blood-colored phantom not far away that occupied the sky. And the mighty army of undead on the ground. Court death. The two words were almost bitten out, and a billowing chill emerged from the gaps in the armor. Although this inexplicable army does not know where it came from and who it was ordered by, but he, Abel, will die today without a place to bury him. Wow, with the continuous infusion of magic power. All the soldiers of the kingdom can feel the surging power released from the treasure in His Majesty's hands. This invisible sense of oppression is like the sky is about to fall. Is this the treasure bestowed by the Lord? It's too powerful, at least it's special grade. A priest was shocked, just as all eyes were focused on that treasure. The invisible sense of oppression suddenly disappeared. The Red Devil King turned around slowly, looked backward, and stopped using the treasure. Let everyone be puzzled. Your Majesty, you are. The voice did not fall. A shout came from the Red Devil King's mouth, shaking the surrounding space into turmoil. Where did the mouse come from? A sword appeared in his hand. Cut out a continuous sword light. Boom. When the sword light fell to a space, a purple magic formation emerged. The evil magic circle directly devoured Jian Guang completely. Blocked. The Red Devil frowned. Under the spotlight. This magic circle turns. It turned into a magic door like the entrance to hell. The magic door opens. A glamorous and coquettish figure walked out of the pitch-black door. Seraphim. Seeing the three pairs of black wings on Lilith's back, the Red Devil King's eyes were gloomy like a pool of stagnant water. The murderer who wiped out his 30,000 elite army earlier seems to be this guy in front of him. And the fall of the High Priest Yusa must have something to do with it. It's really a fallen angel. Could it be that High Priest USA was killed by a fallen angel? Gulu, 6 wings, how could a fallen angel of this level appear here? Many dark goblins felt fear and even surprise when they saw Lilith's posture. After all, this is a fallen angel, and it has 6 wings. Such a supreme demon clan would appear in such a tiny place on the first floor of the abyss. Hey, what about the Seraphim? The level is only 25. In the face of the absolute level difference, the distance difference between the bloodlines will only be infinitely reduced. The Red Devil didn't bother to drink coldly. Although I don't know what method the other party relied on to destroy his 30,000 elite rooms. But now that he holds the treasure bestowed by the Lord, and he has a huge level advantage, he firmly believes that the other party is definitely not his opponent. The Red Abyss is critical. The Red Devil moved and came to the midair. He stepped forward with his right foot. Above Lilith, the space distorted. A crack opened like an eye. The blood-colored light curtain is like a waterfall, descending from the crack in the dark void. As the magic power blocked, Lilith raised her slender right arm. She spread out her palms, under the cover of these bloody lights. She could feel the flow of magic power in her body gradually slowing down. That's right. The magic power in your body is temporarily blocked by my threshold. Even if you are a seraphim, you will not be able to escape death today. The Red Devil sneered and came to Lilith. A sword that gathered its own magic power chopped off his head. He, Abel Kasax, will become the first dark goblin in the history of the abyss to kill a fallen angel. Is this the abyssal creature that has reached level 30? It's so powerful. Wu Yu below, together with the other two, felt this incomparable power, and at this moment their bodies and minds were trembling unceasingly. Looking at the sky that seemed to be shattered by the Red Devil's own power. With such an exaggerated power, all the reincarnations in the abyss today combined cannot match the Red Demon King alone. Boom! As the sharp sword was cut down, the picture of spraying blood in their minds did not appear. Is this your full strength? Then this is too disappointing to me. A melodious chuckle like a flower bell rose suddenly. I saw a magic circle appearing on Lilith's right index finger. This magic circle easily blocked the Red Devil King's sword with all his strength. Your magic power is obviously sealed by me, why? The Red Devil's eyes under the helmet were full of disbelief. The other party is obviously under the pressure of his Hongyuan critical spells, why can he still cast spells? Under his surprised gaze, Lilith's seemingly slender body burst out with unprecedented strength. Get out! From Lilith's tight armor, a strong purple light suddenly burst out. This dazzling purple light crushed the Red Abyss critical in the headspace, covering the sky and everything around it. This is. Under the impact of this purple light, the Red Devil quickly backed away, staring at Lilith's black armor at the same time. This feeling is absolutely good. The tight armor on this fallen angel is definitely a rare treasure. The level is much stronger than the treasure given by the Lord in his left hand. Is it epic? Under the blood-colored helmet, the original ferocious face of the Scarlet Devil King showed a bit of dignity. No wonder the other party was able to ignore his magic blockade before, and it turned out that he was wearing an epic treasure. Now it's a bit tricky. Seeing that the Red Devil did not continue to attack, Lilith said indifferently, although my level has not returned to its peak state, it is not comparable to lowly species like you. This fallen angel, don't be too rampant. You are now within the magic circle of my kingdom. A loud cry echoes. A group of dark goblin knights and priests appeared in midair one after another. They raised the weapons in their hands, opened their mouths, and chanted the operation spell of the inner city magic circle together. The thundercloud magic circle covering the entire inner city on the dome emerged and turned. Boom! Lightning pierced through the darkness, and violent thunder descended with destructive power, aiming at Lilith. However, even such a fierce thunder and lightning was still blocked by Lilith. Thousands of strands of black air flowed from the pitch-black fallen angel wings. These black air are intertwined together, turning into a black curtain to attack and block the magic circle. All blocked. This is all the power Lei Jen has accumulated for so many years. Is she really only level 25? The faces of the people changed in shock. This farce should end. The way Lilith looked at these dark goblins was like looking at bugs. Farce, ha ha ha. The Red Devil King on one side suddenly burst into laughter. Then let's see who is the farce. The Scarlet Devil King, who wanted to hold back at first, showed his full strength and whole cards at this moment. Because he is very aware of the power of epic treasures, he must not hide anything in this battle. So what about the fallen angels? The believers of Carvel's god of war will not give in easily. Magic blood call. The high-pitched roar sounded like a dragon roaring and a tiger roaring. Next moment, at the feet of the Red Devil King, circles of blood-colored halos rose. 4 circles of halos overlapped and surrounded him. I saw the surging magic power in his body began to rise steadily. On the blood-colored armor, a bright red glow emerges, and the will of the god of war in Cavil is revealed here. The Red Devil King as a whole seems to have been sublimated. Oh, cross-border Sin and Lin. Lilith frowned slightly. She could feel that a force from the upper layer of the abyss was continuously pouring into the body of the Red Devil King. The Red Devil put away the sword in his right hand, holding the treasure wrapped heavily in black cloth with both hands. Wow! The rapid influx of magic power revealed the true face of the treasure bestowed by the File Lord. The black cloth fell off, and a thick and huge magic knife was exposed in full view. The shape of the magic knife is like a giant tower, and the surface is covered with cracks emitting a faint light. It is full of lifeless spirit. This is the true strength of the Red Devil King. Wu Yu stared in horror at the Red Devil King who was still soaring into the sky, and was dumbfounded in his heart. When he saw Lilith fighting the goblins of the entire kingdom alone, he felt a little bit of running away in his heart. After all, if His Majesty the Red Devil King is killed in battle, they might be the next to die. But judging by the current situation, it is still difficult to determine the outcome. He didn't dare to act rashly. Get out of the way, this is my king's one-man fight. The Red Devil first ordered everyone to retreat. Then he jumped up and turned into a beam of flaming meteors, charging towards Lilith. This vast magic power caused the huge inner city to vibrate together with everything within a radius of tens of thousands of meters. With such a big commotion, it seems that the Red Devil King has tried his best. Luo Shang stood on top of the summoned Frostthorn dragon, looking at everything in the inner city. A smile appeared on his face. In his eyes, the destruction of the Red Devil Kingdom was already a doomed thing. Boom! Tsunami-like air waves and monstrous sparks are constantly flowing between the magic power and the shield. The Red Devil King's aura was high, and under the will of Cavil's god of war, his strength had already increased several times. As for the rapid consumption of magic power in the body, the Red Devil King, who had already had the intention of killing in his heart, didn't pay attention to this point. There is only one thought in his mind now. That is to kill this arrogant fallen angel in front of him. Quote exclamation mark quote. Under the whistling sound, the power of the magic knife is getting stronger and stronger, and the undead spirit that ravages everything erupts from the knife body, eroding the shield protecting Lilith. A little, just a little bit. Crack, when the shield breaks, watching the magic knife cut to Lilith's neck. Under the scarlet helmet, the Red Devil King beamed with joy. The mouth opened up into a sinister grin. Seraphim, that's all. But the scene of chopping off the head with one knife did not appear as expected. Money. This, the Red Devil was startled. All I could see were tiny purple runes emerging from the skin where the magic knife had slashed. This prohibition floating on the skin is like an iron wall. The magic knife's attack couldn't hurt him at all. The Sword of Greed. Holding the sword in her right hand, Lilith slashed at the Red Devil King. The Red Devil King, who sensed the danger of death with his sixth sense, wanted to turn sideways to avoid the attack. But the sword's cutting speed seems to be faster than the flow of time. When the idea of avoiding just appeared in his mind, the sword landed on his left shoulder. This armor that had accompanied him in battle for many years was extremely fragile under the blade of the Sword of Greed. The armor was easily cut. PFF'd. Blood spattered. Ah! The Red Devil wailed in pain, and his entire left arm was directly chopped off. Enduring the heart-piercing pain, he quickly retreated from midair to the city wall. Your Majesty, quickly use the healing spell to stop the bleeding for Your Majesty. All the goblins surrounded them one after another. Several priests also immediately raised their sticks and cast healing spells to heal the wound on the left arm of the Scarlet Devil King. But when the emerald green healing light just touched the bloody wound, it was actually swallowed by the black air lingering around the wound. What's going on? Even the disperse spell can't get rid of the black energy. One person said with a pale face. Tried a few more times. They found that no matter what kind of spell they used, as long as the spell was close to the wound, it would be completely swallowed up by the surrounding black air. You guys step back. The hoarse voice of the Red Devil came from under the helmet. But Your Majesty, your wound. This king said, step back. Accompanied by a low growl, the strong sense of oppression released from the armor made all the goblins have to follow away from them. The Red Devil raised his head slowly. The embarrassing appearance covered with cuts and bruises did not make the Red Devil's whole body weaker. On the other hand, the burly body stood tall and straight, like an unstoppable mountain. He stared fixedly at the Sword of Greed in the former's hand. He saw it. The level of that sword is definitely not low, at least it is epic level, even legendary level. And the black energy on his left arm also came from the curse contained in that sword. This curse cannot be dispelled by ordinary spells at all, otherwise he would not have made all the priests retreat. I didn't expect Your Excellency to have so many treasures, it's beyond my expectation. But do you really think this will kill me? The Red Devil raised his magic knife with one arm, and he was about to cast an extremely powerful abyss spell at the cost of his soul. Your Majesty can't. His Majesty. Hearing the voices from the goblins, the Red Devil King said coldly, I have made up my mind, you. Your Majesty, what I want to say is to be careful on the left side. Hearing this, the Red Devil King was taken aback for a moment. Then he subconsciously glanced to the left from the corner of his eye. A dazzling blue light came into view. A meteor-like light beam is shooting towards him at extreme speed. What? Like a tsunami, this frosty dragon's breath directly engulfed the Red Devil King's entire body. Boom! Terrible forces razed most of the city walls to the ground. In a ruin filled with cold mist, the Red Devil collapsed to the ground. He raised his head tremblingly, and his eyes fell on the sky in front of him. A huge black shadow covering the sky and the sun, leading an army of lava monsters and undead appeared on the edge of the inner city. And that giant dragon is clearly the Frost-horned dragon. In his mind, the skill of Frost Ceratosaurus is one of the trump cards of High Priest USA. Now that the High Priest is dead, where did this horned dragon come from? This is the High Priest's Frost-horned dragon. What the hell are you? Haven't you been looking for me? Standing on the dragon's head, Luo Shang raised his horns. The words fell. The Red Devil King's pupils shrank suddenly, as if he understood many things at once. Before, you killed all the knights in my kingdom. Luo Shang remained calm. With so many facts in front of us, do you still need to ask me? Ha ha ha. The Red Devil King just laughed a few times, and the whole person began to cough up blood violently. The helmet has been infested with spurted blood. Ahem, I really didn't expect that an outsider would have such strength. The Red Devil King had already seen that Luo Shang in his eyes was clearly an outsider. And in this way, all his original doubts will be easily solved. Outsider, this king recognizes your strength, but you will soon. That's not all. A sword light flashed across, directly beheading the ugly heads of the Red Devils together with their helmets. Lilith then teleported to Luo Shang. She knelt down on one knee, lowered her head and said, Lilith slowed down the time, please punish the Lord. There is no need for punishment for such a small matter. Luo Shang said lightly, thank you Lord for your forgiveness. Lilith got up slowly, respectfully. She turned around immediately, her face as frosty. With a wave of his right arm, he said coldly, kill them all, and don't keep a single one. A group of lava gore fiends who were already hungry and thirsty finally got the order to kill wantonly. They all roared excitedly, and rushed towards the bottom of the inner city in unison. At the same time, there is a vast army of undead. And the kingdom goblins on one side, still immersed in the death of His Majesty the Red Devil. When they reacted, they were all flustered. Many dark goblin soldiers were completely terrified by this scene like a natural disaster. Momentum drops. The High Priest, Your Majesty, are all dead. Everything is over. The Crimson Devil Kingdom is about to perish. The weapon in his hand fell to the ground, and a dark goblin held his head in his hands and muttered to himself. In their eyes, His Majesty the Red Devil King is like the supreme god, and he has always been the pillar of their belief. Now that this pillar has collapsed, their inner will to fight has also collapsed. Ah, my hand. Hearing the screams from all directions, Wu Yu and the 3 reincarnated traitors of the Thousand Feathers Alliance were already terrified and completely frightened. Fake, we reincarnated have such a terrifying existence, how is this possible? Chen Shui tremblingly said. In his opinion, even the top 10 reincarnators on the ranking list cannot possibly have such strength. Gulu, he couldn't be the saint mentioned in the rumors all the time. Lei Wanjin's opening made the other 2 tremble at the same time. Chapter 101. Holy. As the number 1 on the killing list, he is also recognized as the strongest among all the reincarnated in the abyss today. In their impression, it has always belonged to an extremely mysterious existence. Because the other party has not joined any alliance, nor has it established any alliance by relying on its own influence, and has never even spoken in the channel. Totally a loner. Gulu, even if he is really the rumored saint, will he let us go? If the evil and charming man standing on the dragon's head is really holy, they would have reason to ask him to let him go. After all, the 3 of them are already notorious reincarnated traitors in the Abyss channel. Wu Yu, Lei Wanjin turned his head stiffly, and looked backward. But he found that Wu Yu who was standing behind him had disappeared. Chen Shui also reacted, and then said with a pale face, Maid, that guy sneaked away. Let's go before that guy notices our side. The words fell. Lei Wanjin fled in one direction without stopping. Lei Wanjin Yu. Chen Shui looked ugly, and then joined the fleeing team. In his opinion, even if he knelt down and begged for mercy, the possibility of that reincarnated person who was suspected of being a holy spared his life was very small. Now his only way is to run. My lord, do you need Lilith to kill those 3 alien ants? Lilith turned her head, lowered her head slightly, and said calmly with her right hand on her chest. No need. Let me handle these 3 people myself. Luo Shang watched the hurried backs of the 3 with a smile in his eyes. These 3 reincarnations were discovered immediately when he came to this inner city. They thought that Luo Sheng's eyes were not on them, but they didn't realize that their actions at every moment were shrouded in Luo Sheng's spirit. Go, Luo Sheng spoke to the Frostthorn. Wow. The whole is like a frost-horned dragon with endless mountains, slowly opening and closing its wings. Quote, with a low growl, the ice-horned dragon spread its wings and took off. This frost ceratosaurus is 2 levels higher than the one summoned by USA High Priest, so its size is slightly larger than it. A few kilometers to the north. Wu Yu was out of breath, and his face was extremely pale. Obviously, he used too many spells at once, which caused the magic power in his body to be overdrawn. I wear an invisibility cloak that allows me to blend in with my surroundings and reduce my sense of presence. Plus I just slipped away early, that Reincarnator probably doesn't know my current location. He muttered to himself, and then he took out the only remaining bottle of magic power recovery potion from the space. Without the slightest hesitation, he drank all of it directly. Just in case, go as far away as possible. Wu Yu wiped the corner of his mouth. There is only one life, so be careful sailing for thousands of years. After all, the apocalyptic scene before was still lingering in his mind. Too powerful. That powerful force completely crushed the Red Devil Kingdom. Until now, he still can't believe it. Why is there such a big gap between the other party and himself who are both reincarnations? He browsed the Myriad Worlds channel, and he also saw reincarnated people whose reincarnation race and talents were both legendary 7th and 8th ranks. But the gap between the strength of the opponent and the reincarnation of the suspected saint in front of him is simply outrageous. I don't want to. My life matters. Wu Yu shook his head, but he just took a few steps forward. In the sky behind, there were bursts of crackling and crackling clouds. What sound? He subconsciously turned his head backwards. But his eyes froze afterwards. A huge monster in the sky that obscures the sun is flying towards him. And this giant figure is the frost-horned dragon he saw earlier. Instantly, Wu Yu turned pale. Could it be that he found me? This is impossible. But when the horned dragon finally landed directly in front of him, Wu Yu also completely extinguished the slightest bit of luck in his heart. His whole body was trembling, as if standing at the gate of hell. A low-level item, do you think I can't see it? Luo Sheng smiled lightly. Not long after the voice fell. Trembling, Wu Yu took off the invisibility cloak on his body. Then he knelt down on the ground without saying a word, tremblingly said, Your Excellency, I, Wu Yu, would like to serve you as an ox and a horse for the rest of my life, and please let me go to Shidiao community for the sake of us being human races. 0. Let your life go. Yes, as long as your Excellency wishes, I will. Wu Yu raised his head and was about to say that he was of good value to Luo Sheng. Human race. You, a dark goblin who has been included in the Red Devil Kingdom, are you talking about me? Ridiculous. Luo Sheng signaled. The frostthorn dragon under its feet also instantly understood what he meant, and raised its right paw like a towering mountain. Pressed towards Wu Yu who is kneeling on the ground. Wu Yu was terrified, but unfortunately he didn't even have time to cry out. It was slapped into meat sauce with one palm. You successfully killed a level 11 Reincarnator and gained 4,000 experience points. After collecting Wu Yu's corpse, Luo Sheng drove Frostthorn to fly towards the other 2 Reincarnators. In less than a minute, the remaining 2 Reincarnators from the Thousand Feather Alliance were also easily killed. You successfully killed a level 10 Reincarnator and gained 3,500 experience points. You successfully killed a level 9 Reincarnator and gained 3,000 experience points. There's only 12,000 experience points left to reach level 30. Luo Sheng looked at the system panel and couldn't help sighing. Sure enough, the experience of killing Reincarnators came quickly. And no wonder over time. In the Abyss channel and even the Myriad Realms channel, there are more and more people who specialize in hunting reincarnated people to gain experience. Killing one Reincarnator will earn the benefits of dozens of monsters, which is simply blood money. However, these few people are also really poor. With their whole bodies combined, there are only a few thousand low-level spars. Soon, Luo Sheng returned to the inner city of the Red Devil Kingdom. At this moment, this incomparably splendid and lush royal city is no longer what it used to be, and it has completely turned into ruins. Goblins' residual limbs and flesh were scattered in every corner of the ground. The bright red blood turned the earth into a crimson red. The Red Devil Kingdom, the strongest existence in the kingdom of the six-party Dark Goblin King, 863, is now completely destroyed. Now there are only the last 4 left. Luo Shang smiled. His army of troops will soon break through the gates of all kingdoms. Viliva, refer to the Supreme Lord of the Abyss. Behind him, Viliva in a dragon law robe appeared. According to your order, the law has been arranged in advance. And just now, the magic circle successfully intercepted a ray of extremely hidden soul power. Viliva's bone palm lifted and spread out. Inside a hexagonal crystal wall, a wisp of white gas is trapped. This ray of soul power bumped around, trying to get out of it. Very good. Seeing this scene, Luo Shang narrowed his eyes slightly and nodded. He previously asked Viliva to go to the inner city in advance. The purpose is to let him first set up a shielding circle that can isolate any magic power and the spread of abyssal spells. And the reason for doing this is naturally because of the Abyss Lord behind the Red Devil Kingdom. Now the Abyss Lords behind the other 5 Dark Goblin Kingdoms are all locked in battle, and have no time to pay attention to the trivial matters here. Only the Lord behind the Red Devil Kingdom did not participate in the treasure battle. So in order to prevent the Red Devil and even people from other kingdoms from sending a distress signal to the Abyss Lord, he asked Viliva to arrive here ahead of time, and set up the isolation circle. He guessed that the current ray of soul power was probably the distress signal sent by the Red Demon King to the Abyss Lord outside. It's a pity that even though the Red Devil King died, he didn't expect that every step he took was within Luo Shang's plan. I will leave it to you to attack the Kingdom of Kings and the Kingdom of Dark Gold in a while. Luo Shang spoke. Please rest assured, the Great Lord of the Abyss, Viliva will perfectly complete the task you entrusted. Viliva lowered his head deeply, and escaped into the space again. Subsequently, Luo Shang fell from the frost ceratops. After arriving at the ruins, he walked straight towards a dilapidated palace. At the end of the palace stood a dusty golden throne. It seems that this is the treasure house of the Red Devil Kingdom. With Luo Shang's current mental strength, it is easy to see that there is a prohibition to open the door of the treasure house in the throne. He picked up a trace of magic power and poured it into the throne. Wow! The lime that covered the surface of the throne immediately drifted away. Immediately afterwards, a magic circle appeared on the surface of the throne. There is also a notch in the center of the prohibition. Presumably it is the key to open the door of the treasure house. The Sword of Desire. Luo Shang held the Sword of Desire. A sword slashed towards the prohibition of the magic circle without hesitation. For things that can be solved by force, this key is no longer needed. Zzz. The sword fell on the prohibition, arousing a burst of intense and desolate thunder. This surging lay way violently turbulent the surrounding space. It's quite solid, but it's still a little bit worse. The corners of Luo Shang's mouth curled up, and the strength and magic infusion in his hands increased slightly. Crack. It seems to have reached the limit, restraining the cracks floating on the surface until it completely collapses with the accompanying crisp sound. A broken ban, the rear of the throne. A spiral entrance appeared in the space. Obviously, this is where the treasure trove comes in. Let me see what good things are in the treasure house of the Red Devil Kingdom. He had obtained 800,000 low-level crystals, tens of thousands of low-level abyssal souls, and many treasures in the treasure house of Gus Kingdom, although the grades were all below the special level. But there are many. I don't know what is in the treasure house of the Red Devil Kingdom. Dim vault space. Altars are lined up in the left and right rows. And on each altar is placed a spatial treasure box. He casually picked up the space treasure box in the first altar. Open it and have a look. It is some advanced abyss biological material. After putting it away, the roadmap will be faster for convenience. Directly use the magic power to attract all the space treasure boxes in this space to your front. 3 advanced items. The heart of a level 25 Frost Titan. About 10 minutes later, Luo Shang, with a slight look of disappointment on his face, walked out of the treasure house space. The treasure house of the Red Devil Kingdom is much worse than that of the Gus Kingdom. Leaving aside the treasures, the number of crystals and low-level abyssal souls alone are not as many as those in the Kingdom of Gus. Presumably, in order to swallow the 5 Dark Goblin Kingdoms in one go, the Red Devil used all the resources of the Great Emperor in the treasury to improve the overall strength of the main country. Forget it. Anyway, there are quite a few. I hope the remaining few kingdom treasure houses will not disappoint me. Luo Sheng shrugged. After walking out of the palace, he drove the frost-horned dragon and flew towards the next target, Yingxin Kingdom. The Scarlet Heart Kingdom is the closest Dark Goblin Kingdom to the Red Devil Kingdom except the Gus Kingdom. At the same time, the inner city of Gus Kingdom. In this messy ruined city, the sound of the sun swallowing the foam is especially loud in this dead and silent city. Gulu, a race of reincarnations, is the diminutive reincarnation of the Dark Goblins, holding a heavy hammer tightly in their hands. He stared around with fear in his eyes. I'm afraid that if I don't pay attention, a monster will appear around me. Yes, President, are you sure those monsters are gone? The goblin reincarnated's lips were a little dry and white, he said tremblingly. He had witnessed the horror and cruelty of those demon legions and undead army before. This almost crushing power destroyed this goblin kingdom that seemed invincible in his eyes within half an hour. What, are you questioning the result of what I said? Front. A Tauren in purple armor turned his head, his voice was thick and his eyes were full of coldness. The goblin reincarnated who was caught by the sight suddenly felt as if he was walking on thin ice, and the hairs all over his body stood on end. 10. He shook his head hastily, and said palely, no, no. HMPH, every corner of this inner city is under the vision of my magic eagle's eyes. If there are still monsters left, how could I risk my life here? He said coldly. Of course, he had seen the strength of that army of demons. If any one of them was taken out, it would be enough to kill dozens of him. If there were any monsters left here, he would never have risked his life here. Wuju, if you are really afraid of death, get out now. An orc reincarnated sneered at the goblin. That's right, it's embarrassing. When you go out in the future, don't tell others that you are a member of my Black Iron Alliance. Ha ha ha. More than a dozen alliance reincarnations also burst out laughing. Why are you standing still? Why don't you act quickly and collect the corpses of these monsters in the inner city? Chairman He Han spoke again. The reason why he took such a huge risk to come here this time is precisely to collect the items of these strong goblins. After all, in his eyes, every dark goblin in the inner city of Gus Kingdom is extremely high level. The material level of the items on them is definitely not low, which is a windfall. While all the members of the Black Iron Alliance were collecting scattered, He Han walked straight to a pool of blood. Tisk tisk tisk, even if he is dead, he still has such a powerful aftermath, I don't know what good things can come out of it. With a touch of excitement, he collected several goblin corpses that were no longer human. Collecting in progress. Collection failed. Collection failed. With the smile suddenly stiffened. He Han frowned tightly. This was the first time he saw such a situation. He remembered that the system said that there is only one reason for collection failure, that is, there is nothing in the collection unit. He walked to another place with a hint of bad premonition. Another dozen or so corpses were collected. In the end, without exception, all of them were collection failures, not even a single low-level spar. How is this going? With a low heart, he soon received messages from other members. The result was the same as myself, nothing was collected. Could it be that some other reincarnated came first? Thinking of this possibility, He Han turned pale. But this is a little impossible. Since the army of undead left here, he has been paying close attention to the situation in this inner city every second, and he can be sure that he has not seen anyone. Then there is only one other possibility left. It was collected by those undead and demons. But when he said this, He Han felt a little weird. Master President, Luo Guan found an entrance to an underground palace. The underground palace. He Han raised his eyebrows fiercely, and he quickly turned around. Moment. A group of people followed a sunken entrance and entered under the underground palace. Master President, a treasure is found ahead. Hearing this, He Han hurried forward, only to see him in a corner. There stands a black stone statue. The stone statue is nearly 1.5 meters high, and the whole is a gargoyle with wings and blue-faced fangs. Cursed Golem. Level. Advanced Level 5. Introduction. The proud work of a powerful undead priest, which seals a very powerful stone ghost. Effect. Golem resurrection consumes a certain amount of mana, and the gargoyle will wake up from it. It turned out to be a high-level 5th-order treasure. This is a big profit. Seeing the level of the golem, Heihan couldn't help exclaiming. But when the smile on his face just broke out, and he was about to put this treasure in his bag, Heihan suddenly felt a biting chill coming from the stone statue. His complexion changed. It's not right, everyone back off. And when he was about to retreat back, he saw it with his own eyes. The gargoyle on the cursed golem slowly bounced up. Scarlet blood burst out of the empty eyes in an instant. Kill. The gargoyle spread its wings and hung in midair. Its blue-faced, fang-toothed figure was filled with a strong killing intent. I'm afraid this power is already at level 20. Feeling the coercion coming to his face, Heihan turned pale immediately. His arms holding the big sword trembled slightly. The only thing he can't figure out now is why this treasure will be opened automatically even though it has no owner. So far, I can only fight this monster. Everyone come with me. You have successfully killed at level 13 Reincarnator and gained experience points. You successfully killed at level 10 Reincarnator and gained experience points. You successfully killed at level 9 Reincarnator and gained experience points. Opening square bracket ... closing square bracket. Congratulations on your upgrade to level 30. Luo Shang stood on the head of the horned dragon, looked at the information panel that jumped out, and was stunned for a moment. This is Valiva met other reincarnations. More than a dozen kill messages popped up for no reason, which also made Luo Sheng stunned for a while. He shook his head and stopped thinking about it. Although I don't know where this reincarnation came from. But for him now, it's like sending charcoal in a timely manner. It has been directly promoted to level 30, which is not bad. Luo Sheng smiled. His gaze overlooked the Chixin Kingdom not far away. The Crimson Devil Kingdom attacked 5 kingdoms, and among them, apart from Gus Kingdom, the one that dispatched the most troops was the Scarlet Heart Kingdom. Because apart from being close to the Red Devil Kingdom, the Red Heart Kingdom's most important point is that its overall strength has always been at the bottom of the 6 Dark Goblin Kingdoms. In the kingdom, there is only one king of the 30th rank. And under the fierce attack of the Red Devil Kingdom in the past few days, the outer city of the Red Heart Kingdom has already fallen, and was directly attacked into the gate of the inner city. The strength has been weakened by more than half. 2 dogs fight, play off. He couldn't help chuckling. For the sudden arrival of the demon army and the undead army. The army of the Red Devil Kingdom caught off guard and the army of the Red Devils on the edge of the inner city were hard to stop. The battle scene below completely presents a unilateral massacre by one side. Why are there so many demons here? What the hell is going on here? A dark goblin looked terrified at the lava gorefiend occupying the sky and the army of undead outflanking them. Ah, quick, get out of the way. Spells don't work on these monsters at all. Behind the Red Devil's army, there were countless screams and wailing, accompanied by splashes of bright red blood. The eternal fallen rider who paved the way for the undead army. In a herringbone formation, they charged out on undead horses. And the dark goblins, who have an absolute advantage in number, are not the opponents of this undead imperial cavalry army with only a few dozen. Under the icy cold sword, the goblins are like fish on a chopping board. No one can stop their steps. Bring supreme victory and glory to the Supreme Lord of the Abyss, kill them all, quote. The eternal fallen dark rider in the lead held up the blood-stained sword and let out a loud and thick cry. The majestic breath of death and clanging killing intent are released from the upper and lower parts of the armor, still carrying an invincible mausoleum. Retreat. All fighters retreat to the rear. At the very front, a 3-meter-tall beastman in purple-patterned black armor roared. As the only orc knight among the goblin knights in the Red Devil Kingdom, Rake was at level 25 that day. But looking at the undead and demons in the distance, who looked like the incarnation of the demon god, his face showed unprecedented fear. Where did these monsters come from? Why didn't he notice the slightest bit of mental power before? Take care of yourself first, ridiculous ants. Rake raised his head sharply. Several lava fireballs in the sky suddenly hit him. Magic rock pillar. Rake raised his arms high, and several towering rock pillars drilled out of the ground under his feet. Boom. Although the rock pillars blocked these lava fireballs. But the blocked lava fireball burst open again, splitting thousands of strands of lava flames and scattering down. Ah, what the hell is this? Why can't it be extinguished? Lord Rake, save me. These lava flames fell on the body, as if being covered with gasoline, and the fire swelled. The scorching temperature instantly burned many dark goblins to ashes. But this is clearly just the beginning. The overall strength of the undead army and the blood demon army far exceeded Rake's expectations. Just a few minutes, the number of the 20,000-strong Red Devil's army has been reduced by a quarter. Besides the Red Devil army, the Red Heart Kingdom army guarding the inner city. He was also ruthlessly killed by the Lava Gorefiend. Your unit, Lava Gorefiend, killed a level 9 Dark Goblin warrior and gained 200 experience points. Your unit, Eternal Fallen Dark Cavalry, killed a level 7 Dark Goblin archer and gained 150 experience points. Hearing the extremely pleasant sound of the system's killing, the corners of Luo Sheng's mouth twitched slightly. He turned to look straight ahead. The magnificent Chixin Palace in the center of the inner city. Looking at this posture, it is ready to break through the bottleneck of level 30. Quote, Luo Sheng's spiritual power can be clearly perceived. The magic power of the entire inner city can be gathered in the palace. He was still a little puzzled before. The majestic king of the Goblin Kingdom was beaten to the door of his house, and he could still sit still. Unexpectedly, it turned out to be a breakthrough level. If there is no accident, the king of the Scarlet Heart Kingdom should be able to complete the level breakthrough within a few hours. When Luo Sheng said this sentence, the word, accident, was a little bit extra heavy. He then whispered, go. The frost-horned dragon under its feet flew straight towards the king and threw it away. In this cunning and cruel abyss, no matter how high or low the opponent's level is, he will not give the opponent the slightest chance to advance. The horned dragon broke into the inner city by Zhao. Many goblins and magic circles appeared in all directions, trying to stop them. But with the breath of the frost-horned dragon, everything turned into frost eternity. It was also when the distance between the horned dragon and the palace was close at hand. Now is the critical moment, we must not let him disturb his majesty. The Chixin high priest flew out of the palace together with more than a dozen kingdom powerhouses. They looked solemn, facing the frost-horned dragon that covered the sky and the sun, and unreservedly released their bottom-of-the-box spells. The spell attack all over the sky is attacking towards the horned dragon. Frostthorn raised its head and let out a roar of Longda. Roar. The power of the icy cold condensed a snow-white shield around it. These ferocious attacks were all intercepted outside the shield. Such a little strength, is it tickling? Luo Sheng looked at these ridiculous abyss magic and shook his head. He ordered the frost-horned dragon under his feet, let's make a quick decision. The frostthorn raised its head and let out another high-pitched and resonant roar. The wings covering the sky waved lightly. 2 ice-cold hurricanes condensed and appeared with the rolling of magic power. Accompanied by the biting chill, the strong wind cut through the sky and swept towards High Priest Lexin and others. Black Water Curse. The Red Heart High Priest waved his staff, and the ground under his feet spewed out streams of black liquid. The black water gathered together and turned into a fierce Zhongchuan. Halala. The water of Zhongchuan flows continuously, and its power can be described as vast and majestic. Boom. The deafening sound carried through the ears. The right arm of the Red Heart High Priest holding the staff trembled continuously. The vast cloud-like black water in front couldn't stop the erosion of the cold wind. His face was panicked and ugly. The level of this sub-dragon is obviously only level 28, why is its power so terrifying? This is already comparable to abyssal creatures of level 30 or even level 30. Tens of seconds later, with 220 destructive and icy powers, the hurricane broke through the black water. Facing the wind that seemed to be the end of the world, it was sweeping. Shield of the Hill. A goblin knight took out a crystal stone. This first-class high-level treasure exudes a bright colorful halo. With a flash of phantom light, a towering mountain appeared out of thin air, preventing the hurricane from encroaching. In addition, other people also took out their own life-saving treasures one after another. There are a lot of defensive treasures. Luo Sheng raised his eyebrows slightly. But the frost-horned dragon who heard Luo Sheng's casual words. A strange color flashed across a pair of dragon eyes. Immediately, with a tremor in his words, he hurriedly said to Luo Sheng. Please rest assured, the Supreme Master of the Abyss, this defensive technique is not worth mentioning in front of servants. It is the honor of his life to be summoned by Luo Shang, the greatest being in the abyss. So he absolutely didn't want to leave any bad impression on the Lord of the Abyss. True Dragon's secret curse. The Frostthorn lowered its head, its eyes full of killing intent glared at the defensive treasures in front of it. Struggling in vain, ants should have the consciousness of ants, and die. The Frost Ceratops opened its mouth. The long ancient dragon language reverberates throughout the kingdom. The shocking dragon language seems to be singing a great dragon epic. I see. A little bit of dazzling starlight glowed all over the Frost Dragon. The Frostthorn's mouth opened to the extreme. The magic power originally gathered towards the palace was reversed by a strong suction force at this moment. It floated towards the mouth of the frost-horned dragon. In just a moment, a huge blue light sphere like the sun and the moon was suspended in front of the horned dragon's mouth. Destroy everything. This huge ball of light with a diameter of several thousand meters tore through the sky of the Chixin Kingdom and flew towards Juxin High Priest and others. This move gathered nearly half of the magic power of the frost-horned dragon itself, and its power naturally far exceeded the previous magic power. No, this move is unstoppable, go back quickly. One person said in horror. But now I have the idea of AA retreating in my heart, and it is obviously too slow. Wow, the blazing blue light is as dazzling and piercing as the northern lights. Under this absolute power, the treasure's defense was instantly shattered and turned into nothing. And the kingdom powerhouses such as the Chixin High Priest were no exception, and they soon followed in the footsteps of treasure. You killed a level 29 Dark Goblin High Priest and gained 3,000 experience points. You killed a level 22 Dark Goblin Knight and gained 2,000 experience points. You killed a level 23 Dark Goblin Warrior and got BCEH. Luo Shang glanced at the killing messages that popped up one after another, and couldn't help nodding and said to himself, this strength is really good. The Frostthorn's all-out attack is already close to the 30th level. Even if he is facing this move, without wearing the Immortal Abyss armor or any other treasures, it is difficult to stop it with his physical body alone. Now only, Luo Shang turned his head and just set his eyes on the Chixin Palace. Boom! A black light broke through the roof of the palace. All I saw was a burly figure slowly flying out of the black rainbow. Come out by yourself, it seems that you don't need to bother me. In Luo Shang's field of vision with a slight smile, that burly figure was naked from the upper body. Wearing a triangular crown on his head, he was glaring at Luo Shang in front of him and the Frost Ceratops under his feet. The Frostthorn Dragon's move just now forcibly sucked away the magic power in all directions, and directly made his shaky bottleneck stabilize again. Obviously he is only a little bit close to breaking through the shackles that have trapped him for decades. It's all right now, and we have to start all over again. If you don't avenge this revenge, you will never die together. A mere outsider, so rampant, wouldn't really regard this huge abyss as your country. He also could see that Luo Shang was an outsider. Although the face on the surface was extremely angry, but the heart on the other side set off a huge wave. After all, in his impression, those reincarnated people are basically pitifully small. A powerful outsider like Luo Shang has completely exceeded his imagination. From the corner of his eye, he looked outside the inner city. The overwhelming demons and the vast army of undead. There is an indescribable feeling in my heart. Although he knew that those outsiders had the power to summon creatures from all walks of life in the abyss to become slaves, but this was too exaggerated. The undead cavalry can only appear with such a large number of high-level demons and undead empires from the middle of the abyss. It's over, are these your last words? Luo Shang, who turned a deaf ear to these words, said calmly. Last words, Your Excellency is so confident. Ghost Eater Hammer. In the right hand of the Scarlet Heart King, a skeleton hammer appeared. Under the infusion of magic power, this ghost hammer quickly became huge, growing to hundreds of meters, as if it had become a titan hammer. Hammer on that covered skull. As if alive, the lower jaw opened, and wisps of incomparably penetrating green mist floated out, seemingly endless. For a moment, Luo Shang noticed that the surrounding area of nearly 10,000 meters was completely surrounded by fog. The result, he saw at a glance that the reason why King Scarlet Heart did this was obviously that the troops outside the city gate came to help him. The Scarlet Heart King immediately waved the Hammer of Titan, and smashed it towards Luo Shang and even the body of the Frostthorn Dragon. Clatter! The giant hammer fell head-on like a 10,000-foot mountain, full of oppression. He left it to me to deal with. Luo Shang stopped the Frostthorn who was about to attack, and he floated up. And the Red Heart King who saw this scene had a sneer all over his face, rampant. Furious. This is my confidence in my strength. After all, the gap between you and me is really too big. Luo Shang let out an indifferent cry, and raised his arms high. The 3 pairs of graceful and gorgeous fallen angel wings spread out in an uproar. In an instant, the entire sky seemed to be caught in an eternal cycle of dead silence. Darkness covers the sky and the earth. The wings are condensed by the supreme will of this abyss. Full of all the evil emotions in this world. This strand represents the beauty of extreme evil. It is simply breathtakingly beautiful. With the wings of the fallen angel fully unfolded, Luo Shang seemed like a prehistoric beast breaking free from its shackles, and the momentum around him changed suddenly. The breath is like a tsunami slowly rising from the ocean, rising continuously. This horrifying scene let the heart of the Heart King, who thought that he used all his cards and had a perfect chance to defeat Luo Shang and the Frost-Horned Dragon that had exhausted most of its magic power, suddenly change. And couldn't help exclaiming, "Seraphim!" Although he knew that outsiders reincarnated in different races, it was the first time he had seen a strange thinker who was reincarnated into a demon clan. And the other party is a seraphim, a high-ranking demon clan. The Scarlet Heart King's eyes darkened, because his heart was full of solemnity. After all, blood suppression is the most obvious in the law of the abyss. Now he just felt the fallen angel's aura emanating from Luo Shang's body, and the blood all over his body seemed to be frozen. A biting chill flowed into his limbs and veins. You must know that you are now under the blessing of the Ghost Hammer enchantment. Under the blessing, he was suppressed by the blood into this appearance. If there is no barrier protection, the suppression effect will be even more serious. Luo Shang raised his right arm slowly. A huge overlapping magic circle emerged in front of the palm. The magic circle was full of purple light, and a gloomy fire bloomed in the circle. The magic power is running, and the magic circle is like an ancient clock turning, emitting a magnificent quality of apocalypse. Until there was a loud bang, and a blazing flame light wave was released. Boom! The giant hammer collided with the light wave, and there was a continuous roar. The Scarlet Heart King clenched his teeth, and his eyes widened. I saw that the power of the Ghost Hammer was being quickly overwhelmed by the light wave under the watchful eye. He underestimated. Right now, the strength of this outsider is already comparable to that of a level 35 abyssal creature. The Dark Goblin King finally persisted for tens of seconds. The turbulent waves of light covered the power star of the Ghost Hammer. The Scarlet Heart King flew upside down, and the green mist barrier behind him was like a mirror flower in the moon and water, breaking at the touch of a touch. He fell straight into the palace below, like a comet falling from the sky. Boom! The royal palace was also destroyed by this blow, and most of it was turned into ruins. In the pit, the Scarlet Heart King's skin was ripped open, and blood flowed from the wounded place. Cough, cough, cough. He coughed up blood violently, and his peripheral vision fell on a string of skull necklaces around his neck. At this moment, the skulls on the necklace were already covered with cracks, and the chain of the death curse was broken with just one blow. Quote, "Oh, I didn't expect this guy to have a high-level 9th-level defensive item on his body, which is unexpected." Luo Shang raised his eyebrows. Then there was a smile in his eyes, but that was all. King's Landing. The Chixin King bent over and was about to continue fighting with Luo Shang, but he hadn't had time to stand firm. A strong force of gravity, like the sky falling down, fell on his body. The Scarlet Heart King's legs, plop. Kneeling on the ground with a sound, he supported the ground with his arms, and the ground under him was sunken and shattered. The Red Heart King's pupils shrank suddenly. That move just now was not the full strength of that outsider, and the current gravity coercion is only stronger than the previous magic skill. How is it possible? Although you are a seraphim, your level is also the same as this king. According to common sense, magic power is impossible. Ah! Before the words were finished, the pressure of the king from Luo Shang suddenly increased several times. The head of the Dark Goblin King hit the ground hard, and his whole body stuck to the ground. Luo Sheng raised his right hand, and a sword of desire appeared in his palm. Follow your thoughts. Between thunder and lightning, the sword of desire flew out. A sword pierced the Scarlet Heart King's head. You killed a level 30 Dark Goblin King and gained 3,500 experience points. Collecting. Please wait patiently. Detected that the current environment is suitable for using talents, and is using Supreme Favor. Collection completed. You have obtained the Paladin's Broken Sword, a rare 9th level item, the Heart of the Red Flame Python 1, advanced 5th level item, the Advanced Skill Book, Warrior's Blessing, *1, advanced 6th level item, Demonic Blood of the Dark Goblin King 4, high level 4th level item, middle level Abyssal Soul. There are rare items. There was a hint of surprise in Luo Sheng's eyes. He hadn't thought that he would be able to release items above the rarity level from the Scarlet Heart King. And it's still a rare 9th level, almost reaching the epic level. Paladin, it doesn't sound like something from the abyss, could it be from another world? The Remnant Sword of the Paladin. Level. Special 9th rank. Introduction. The original Fatis Dalu is the head of the 3 Holy Knights of the Fengshi Kingdom, the Sword of the Bright Moon Paladin. Note. Although this broken saber has lost its former power, the Paladin brilliance contained in it still poses a fatal threat to weak evil creatures. Looking at Luo Sheng, who commented on this line, his thoughts moved slightly. I can only see the front. A rusty, half-broken sword appeared in his eyes. But also after counting interest that he took out. On the golden hilt, suddenly bloomed a glaring knife that was as dazzling as the sun. The golden light swept through the darkness of the surrounding fields. Even Luo Sheng couldn't help squinting his eyes when he saw this holy and majestic force. This is the power of an epic powerhouse. Unexpectedly, this Haoyu Paladin would be a strong man who stepped into the epic level. I feel this power in my mind, and I have a strong sense of disgust. It seems that the abyssal race is naturally disgusted with the Holy Power Emperor. After he muttered to himself, he was about to put the sword into the system space. Buzz. The golden light erupting from the sword suddenly swept towards him. Obviously, it was the powerful fallen angel blood on Luo Sheng. The scabbard that caused this broken sword. This is why a line of comments appeared when the panel was just opened. You've become like this, and you still want to kill me. Luo Sheng smiled disdainfully at this. The moment the golden light rushed, bursts of shadows emerged from Luo Sheng's body in an instant, forming a gorgeous and dark magic illusion. It is the immortal abyss armor. This strong golden light that contained the paladin's will, touched the magic armor, and the halo was quickly swallowed like a stone sinking into the sea. The fireflies are trying to crush the abyss in vain. Luo Sheng was indifferent, and grabbed the broken sword with his right hand. The golden light surrounding the sword was completely swallowed by the immortal Yuan armor. This former knight's holy sword is now visibly trembling with the naked eye, as if in fear. As the supreme artifact of the abyss, the immortal abyss armor represents the supreme will of the abyss. It's not something that a mere paladin's sword can resist. After returning the saber to the space, Lu Tu turned his head. His eyes swept back. The lava gorefiend and even an army of undead have completely breached the gate of the inner city. The great and supreme lord of the abyss, all living beings in this country have been destroyed, please issue a new order. A lava gorefiend flew in front of him, knelt down on one knee, and said respectfully, send an order to attack the remaining 3 kingdoms with all your strength, and they must be captured within 2 days. Follow orders. At this point, the Chixin kingdom was destroyed. In the rest of the time, the army of demons and the army of the undead are in full swing. Under the leadership of Viliva and Lilith respectively, they easily destroyed the remaining 3 dark goblin kingdoms. Congratulations on completing the 4th-level mission, defeating the Dark Goblin Kingdom. Rating for you. Detected that the current environment is suitable for using talents, and is using Supreme Favor. Consettlement rewards also use talents. Luo Sheng froze for a moment, a little surprised. Your rating for this task is SSS level. Rewards are being settled according to your level. Congratulations on obtaining the entry key, special level, of the Demon God Cemetery. The Shabir Box Legendary Tier 1 item, Beast King Quan Staff, Epic Tier 6, 500,000 experience points, 100,000 low-level crystals, and 10,000 intermediate crystal stone. A series of dazzling rewards made Luo Sheng feel a little excited and shocked. He looked down at the system panel below. Congratulations on reaching level 31. Congratulations on reaching level 32. Congratulations on reaching level 33. Congratulations on reaching level 34. With so much experience, he was directly promoted to 4 levels in a row, which is a blowout soaring. Just this one breath. Luo Shang closed his eyes slightly, and a wave-like magic light spread from his body. The power enveloped tens of thousands of meters near Fang Yuan. The eyes slowly opened. He could feel a qualitative improvement in the strength of his body. That's right. Sure enough, my preparations for so long were not in vain. Luo Shang is very satisfied with the reward settlement. Especially in addition to this large amount of experience, there are a lot of mid-level crystals and mid-level abyssal souls. Apart from these, Luo Shang was most concerned about this special item. He clicked on the panel. The key to unlock the demon god's graveyard. Level. Special. Introduction. The cemetery where countless abyssal demon gods are buried. This will be the most important thing to enter the cemetery. Note. Cannot be destroyed. Devil's graveyard. Luo Shang raised his eyebrows. He shook his head. Forget it, let's study these things after returning to the territory. Now that the 6 dark goblin kingdoms are all destroyed, it's time to evacuate this place. After all, the real overlords of the first layer of the abyss now belong to those abyss lords who dominate one side. Meanwhile, Abyss Channel. What kind of nerves are going on upstairs? What the hell is going on all the time? Maid, haven't you seen it? The 4th level mission in the Abyss mission system has been completed by someone. Completed. I remember that mission. Didn't a fool choose to accept it alone? Laughing to death, one person destroyed 6 dark goblin kingdoms. Is he a god? Ida's just a bug display. Big news. Big news. The 6 dark goblin kingdoms were all destroyed, and none survived. Screenshot.jpg. This news has just been sent out, and many people are preparing to start spraying, but after opening the screenshot that comes with it, everyone on the entire channel fell silent. Those few screenshots were clearly the ruins of Gus Kingdom and other dark goblin kingdoms. Corpses are scattered all over the ground like weeds, and blood accumulates into pools. Fake, fake. One person destroyed 6 dark goblin kingdoms. This is really true. One thing to say, I saw an army of undead in the inner abyss before. This may be related to that person. Screenshot.jpg. One person posted a spectacular screenshot of the undead army marching forward. The other side. How is it possible? It's impossible for one person to destroy 6 dark goblin kingdoms. Standing on the balcony of the bunker, Lin Yi couldn't help shouting angrily. He stared fixedly at the Abyss channel and the Abyss system interface in front of him. But no matter how he refreshes it, the sign that the level 4 task has been completed still exists. The president of the Eternal Night Alliance did not want to believe that everything in front of him was real. Because the Eternal Night Alliance he was proud of was vulnerable to a cavalry army from the Red Devil Kingdom. So he couldn't believe that a single person could destroy the entire Dark Goblin Kingdom. And the most outrageous thing is that one person destroyed 6 Goblin Kingdoms. Is this telling a story? Except for Shang, he knows all the powerful reincarnators in the abyss like the back of his hand. Knowing that even if they unite together, it is impossible to destroy either Goblin Kingdom. Even a saint would never be able to do such a thing. Lin Yi asserted. As far as he knows, every king of the Dark Goblin Kingdom is at least level 30. Although the strength of that saint is unfathomable, he firmly believes that the opponent's level must not have reached that level. Not to mention, the 6 Dark Goblin Kingdoms add up to 6 30th level powerhouses. This huge force is enough to sweep away all the reincarnations in the abyss today. Fake, it must be fake news. Lin Yi sneered again and again. He didn't want to believe the news in the channel at all. But even though he said so, I couldn't help thinking of one thing in my mind. The cavalry army of the Red Devil Kingdom who had hunted him down suddenly stopped hunting him recently, but chose to return to the original place. If not, he would have no chance to return to the territory now. After thinking about it carefully, I thought of the buzzing language on the channel. He shook his head. This kind of thing is impossible. He never believed that there would be such a powerful reincarnation in the abyss. Out of sight, out of mind, just when Lin Yi was about to close the abyss channel of rumor. Opening square bracket exclamation mark closing square bracket. An exclamation point appears. He opened it to have a look. The person who saw the message was a senior member of the Alliance. Luan said, "Mr. President, I have important information to report." Important information. Lin Yi frowned slightly. Lu Andao is a senior member of his Eternal Night Alliance specializing in intelligence gathering. So far, most of the first-line information in the Alliance and even the hiding places of many treasures have been collected by him alone. So Lin Yi also trusted him a lot. Lin Yi, what important information? Luan said, "President, I just got the news that the 6 Dark Goblin Kingdoms near the southeast of the inner region have all been destroyed." Seeing these words, Lin Yi's pupils shrank suddenly. Because in his impression, it is basically impossible for Lu Andao's information to be wrong. How is this possible? Lin Yi growled. His eyes are extremely ugly. Is there really someone in this abyss who can destroy the 6 Dark Goblin Kingdoms by himself? Lin Yi's 3 views seemed to have collapsed. At the same time, out of the corner of his eye, he suddenly noticed the virtual panel under his right foot, and a bunch of information suddenly jumped out. The Holy you are following has listed a new item on the exchange. The Holy you follow has listed a new item on the exchange. Opening parenthesis ... closing parenthesis. Seeing all this, Lin Yi vaguely guessed something in his heart, and slowly opened the exchange. I saw that from the first page to the next dozens of pages of the exchange, all of them were filled with the transactions of Luo Shang alone. Warriors Blasinga A Advanced Skill Book. Level. Advanced Level 6. Introduction. The King of Dark Goblins who fell on the first floor of the abyss. After using it, you will learn the skill directly. Quantity. 1. A. The Devil's Blood of the Dark Goblin King. Level. Advanced Level 4. Introduction. The Scarlet Heart King from the Dark Goblin Kingdom on the first floor of the abyss. The blood of the Dark Goblin King contains the lifelong power of the Dark Goblin King. Get a substantial improvement. Quantity. 4. Opening square bracket ... closing square bracket. After briefly looking at the interface of several items, Lin Yi fell silent. The space around him seemed to stop flowing at this moment, turning into a ball of gel. A few minutes passed. Really destroyed. He spat out 5 words hesitantly. Lin Yi's face was terribly pale. Even if he was racking his brains, it was hard to imagine how the saint could destroy the 6 Dark Goblin Kingdoms by himself. Right now, all of this, in his opinion, is as inconceivable as a mortal killing a god. There was a long silence. Lin Yi just took a deep breath. He then sent a message to all coalition members within the coalition. President, starting today, without my permission, any member of the Alliance is not allowed to be an enemy of Holy, and those who violate it will be expelled from the Alliance and will be punished. If all this is true, since this Holy has the strength to destroy the 6 Dark Goblin Kingdoms, it is as easy as snapping fingers to destroy him from the Eternal Night Alliance. Forever Land. Luo Shang sat on the throne, looking down at Viliva who was kneeling in front of him indifferently. Get up. Thank you, Lord. Viliva got up quickly. His movements were smooth, and there was nothing redundant. He lowered his head slightly, and those golden flames that were beating slowly were full of respect and enthusiasm for the Creator in front of him. My lord, here are all the items in the treasure house of the King's Kingdom and the Dark Gold Kingdom. He raised his bony arm, palm out. 2 gold and silver rings floated towards Luo Shang at the same time. After taking over, Lu Shang's mental power went to Jia. Finger cause. A cursory scan. Luo Shang withdrew his mental power. The corners of his mouth hooked slightly. These 2 treasure houses of the Dark Goblin Kingdom are not bad. Is there anything else to report? Luo Shang said calmly. Viliva said, there is indeed one. When my subordinates destroyed the Jinsi Kingdom, I got an important piece of news from the memory of that Jinsi King. 2 years later, the great demon gods of the abyss will forcibly connect the passages of the major worlds, and start a century-old war to strengthen the original power of the abyss. Luo Shang narrowed his eyes. This matter is considered a big event for him, for all the reincarnations of the abyss and even the myriad worlds channel. I understand. You step back. Follow orders. Luo Shang rested his chin on his right hand, looked at the void, thoughtful. Although he had guessed before that there might be a big war between the various camps in the future, he didn't expect it to be so soon. It seems that the speed of development has to continue to accelerate. Because he knows it well. The scale of this battle is definitely between gods and gods. My current level is completely unqualified in front of those high gods. If you want to survive this war, or even get a share of the pie, you must have absolute strength. After a few days, inner domain of the abyss. To the southeast, in a vast expanse of bone-covered land, there stands a magnificent holy sea hundreds of meters high. But even though it is the holy sea, the holy sea is black. The pitch black ink color shrouded the entire building like a shadow. Creepy and mysterious. My lord, my subordinate Bakker has something to report to you. A tall orc in mithril armor pushed open the door of the holy sea. He walked into the holy sea and knelt respectfully on the front steps. In front of the orcs is a 99-level black stone staircase. On the steps is a scarlet throne. And sitting on the throne is a scarlet phantom. The phantom is extremely strange, as if it has merged with everything around it. Say, the hoarse voice carried a hint of chill, as if it came from an ancient well that had been dusty for a long time. The Red Devil has fallen. Which ant's kingdom does the Red Devil King belong to? It's the Dark Goblin Kingdom near the border of Outland in the southeast. Seeing this, Buckle opened his mouth and said, in the first layer of the abyss, there are countless race kingdoms under the command of each abyss lord. As for the Dark Goblin Kingdom, like the Red Devil Kingdom, among the many abyssal races that depend on the Lord, their strength can only be regarded as upper middle, and they cannot enter the eyes of the Lord at all, otherwise they will not let them think about it. It turned out to be the Dark Goblin from the frontier. I don't remember taking out an abyss blood crystal and a treasure from the magic vault and giving it to him, but it still failed. What a useless idiot, the Crimson Lord sneered. In his view, that distant kingdom has taken up the right time, place and people. And just like that, it can still fail. What a waste of his precious abyssal blood crystal. My lord, the Supreme Lord, it is worth mentioning that in addition to the Red Devil Kingdom, the other 5 Dark Goblin Kingdoms were also destroyed. Oh, all gone. Yes, along with the sovereigns of each kingdom. Oh, but that's the case, it seems that other leaders took the initiative. The Abyss Lord narrowed his eyes slightly, not showing off his anger. The silent sense of oppression went straight into the depths of Barker's soul. Let him sway inwardly. He continued to marvel, this is just the sense of oppression released by the Lord's shadow. If the main body came in person, I'm afraid that my soul would have been crushed by that powerful magic at this moment. Ah, haven't found it yet. This matter will be handed over to Fair and the others for investigation. As for the item of the demon god at the core of the inner domain, you don't need to pay more attention to it from now on. Buckle froze for a moment. He didn't understand why the Lord was not interested in such an extremely precious item as the demon god's item. You must know that the lords of the entire abyss level are now fighting for this treasure. Moreover, the more important point is the strength of the Lord. Among the abyss lords, he is also at the top. If he fights for it with all his strength, there is no small possibility that he can get this warranty. But since this is the Lord's decision, he can't say anything more. Subordinates obey. After Buckle left, the Crimson Leader thought, and a cloud of red mist floated in front of his eyes. The mist outlines a circle, inside which presents a vast picture. In the picture, the earth is devastated and the boundless sky is shattered. From time to time, large-scale abyss spells flashed. Watch it all. He couldn't help laughing. A bunch of stupid guys, they don't have any brains, they only know about demon gods. In a few years, the abyss will invade all walks of life and expand the original power. At that time, the original treasures of those worlds will be much better than this kind of treasure that only contains a ray of low-level demon god power. Forever land. That's about as good as it gets. Save the rest of the resources for the next territory promotion. Quote. Luo Shang stood at a high altitude overlooking the territory below him. He built 12 more soul towers for development, and one side for arms. Hundreds of lava Gorefiend and Eternal Fallen Dark Knight were summoned by each. In addition, he also raised the high-level skills such as King's Landing to the highest level in one go. By the way, I haven't taken out the legendary treasure I got from the mission reward before. I don't know how capable it is. Looking back, Luo Shang raised his right hand. Then a square treasure box appeared in the palm of his hand. The whole treasure box is jet black, and it looks ordinary from the outside. It seems to be an iron box. Shabir's Magic Box. Level: Legendary Tier 1. Introduction. It is a product created by a saint-level magician Qian Haohao in the Black Ancient Era with his whole life's painstaking efforts, plus a little bit of the power of time and space laws. Effect: Plain gate consumes a certain amount of crystals to open a space gate that connects to other worlds. The gate will last for 10 minutes, and the cooling time is 10 times in 7 days. Blessing of time and space. Those who hold this object will be protected from the invasion of space turbulence. After viewing this legendary item, Luo Shang was silent for a while. Then he couldn't help but let out a surprised voice. This legendary treasure can open a door to other worlds. The value that this legendary treasure can bring to him now is obviously comparable to that of a special treasure, or even surpassed. It seems that we have to make a new plan. Luo Shang's eyes light up slightly. Return to the Fortress of Eternity. Luo Shang, who was thinking about his plan, just wanted to try this Shabir's Magic Box. Opening square bracket exclamation mark closing square bracket. This is AAA. The exclamation point that jumped out suddenly interrupted his next move. Click to open it. The interface of Wanji channel popped up automatically. Wanji announcement. The arena function is officially unlocked. All reincarnators are requested to open the personal panel function to view and explore by themselves. Arena. Luo Shang raised his eyebrows lightly, and then he opened the personal panel. Sure enough, he found a arena option in the upper right corner of the personal panel. Click to enter. The first thing that pops up is a detailed arena rules. Arena rules. 1. After clicking to start the competition, the system will match the reincarnation with an opponent. After the match is successful, the reincarnation will be sent to the arena for a duel. During the duel, the opponent can only be obtained unless the opponent is killed or the opponent admits defeat. Victory. 2. Death in the arena is not real death. 3. If you win multiple rounds in a row, you will get a certain reward. For details, please refer to Arena Reward Details. 4. Luo Shang rested his chin on his right hand and read this rule in detail from beginning to end. Considered for a while. From the corner of his eye, he focused on the two options in front of him. Start competition. Arena ranking. Pressing the competition option, the corner of his mouth slightly hooked. I'll put the magic box later, let's play a game first. We are matching you with competitors, please wait patiently. The cold mechanical sound echoed in my mind. The match is successful. Transmitting for you, the process takes about 10 seconds. Luo Shang noticed that starting from the bottom of his feet, his body was gradually turning into shimmering light, disappearing and drifting away. He subconsciously closed his eyes. When opened again, I found myself standing in a very vast arena. The style of this arena is very similar to that of a Western-style arena. He looked up. The sky above the head is blue, and the vast clouds and mist are like continuous mountains, slowly drifting across the dome. At the outermost periphery of the arena, a towering majestic stone wall surrounds it. There are countless gods carved on the wall, including the dragon god representing destruction and anger, and the elf mother goddess representing wisdom and courage. These statues of gods are lifelike, CCDB, and extremely mysterious. Luo Shang looked to the opposite side, followed by a flash of blue light. A burly figure appeared. Let me see which poor little smelly has become Lao Su's opponent. Rough laughter came out, and Luo Shang also saw the face of his opponent in the first battle. Chang Duansheng was bald, with a striking scar over his right eye. His jackal-like eyes were looking at this unusually handsome man in his field of vision with a smile. Tisk tisk tisk, you are handsome, but I don't know that your skin can block me a few times. After finishing speaking, Chang Duansheng raised his thick right arm. A bright silver giant knife appeared. Boom. The tip of the knife fell to the ground, making a heavy knocking sound. It can be seen that the weight of this giant knife is amazing. Seeing that Luo Sheng didn't say a word, Cheng Duansheng raised the corner of his mouth. You must have been scared to death. That's right, after all, this is the first time you, an ant like you, have seen a mid-level weapon. But it's an honor for an ant like you to die at the hands of a 10th level powerhouse like me. The countdown to the competition begins. 3, 2, opening square bracket dash exclamation mark closing square bracket. Competition begins. The last drop. Boom. Chang Duansheng's whole body was like a cannonball, and it flew out suddenly. The speed was extremely fast. One trick to solve you. In the blink of an eye, Chang Duansheng swooped towards Luo Sheng, waving his giant thousand. Hit hard at his head. Let you see how powerful the elite bloodline is. Chang Duansheng grinned grinningly, as if he had seen the bloody scene of the latter being split in half by himself. PFF'd, but the sudden stabbing pain brought Chang Duansheng back to his senses. Hey, what's going on, why can't I see anyone? Chang Duansheng suddenly found his eyes fixed on the ground, and the surrounding vision began to become dark and blurred a little bit. What exactly is going on? He tried his best to move his eyes, and finally caught a glimpse of a thing out of the corner of his eye. But after taking a closer look, Chang Duansheng's pupils shrank. An unprecedented chill rushed into my mind and pierced my soul. Isn't it the thing he saw exactly your own body? The headless corpse continued to ooze blood. The bright red blood spread to the surroundings little by little, and the picture was horrified. Chang Duansheng's dry and pale lips parted slightly. But his vocal cords seemed to be cut open, and he couldn't make any sound. You, what the hell are you? He kept murmuring in his heart, and looked fearfully at Luo Sheng's slender lower body not far away. Luo Sheng quietly watched the other party's death, with a slight sneer on his evil face. The clown doesn't know it. Competition ends. Winner, holy. Please choose. Continue competitive match. Teleport away. Teleport away. After Luo Sheng chose, he quickly returned from the arena to the throne of the fortress. He turned on the arena function and checked another arena ranking. Holy, number of wins, 1. It seems that the instant kill is too fast, and I am the only one. Luo Sheng shrugged. According to the competition rules, the top 100,000 reincarnators can receive certain resource rewards every month. And the higher the ranking, the richer the reward. Needless to say, Luo Sheng's goal is naturally the third. Let's try this magic box first, and it's not too late to play in the arena later. He muttered to himself, got up and walked outside the Fort of Eternity. He took out the legendary Tier 1 treasure. Let's get started. Exhaling lightly, he began to pour magic power into the magic box. It only takes 50,000 low-level crystals to open the gate of the plane, which is still acceptable to him now. The treasure box floated up and flew to the void thousands of meters ahead. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.